You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Middle Age Movie Reviews Podcast. Three guys saying, open the pod link, please, Hal. Open the pod link, please. Hal? Hello, Hal. Do you read me? Hello, Hal. Hal? My name is Tim, and my interstellar podcasting partners are...
Marvelous Matt.
Joey.
Also joining us tonight is a man who is no stranger to traveling through time and space. From the Andreas, the pop culture guy, and the MCU's Bleeding Edge YouTube channels, it's Andreas. Say hello, Andreas.
Hello, I am the strange and unusual. Thank you, everyone.
All right, Joey, why don't you tell us what is being beamed to the antenna ray this evening?
Tonight, we are watching the 1968 movie 2001, A Space Odyssey. Odyssey. Number 506 from the book of 1001 Movies You Should Watch Before You Die. Written by Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick. Directed, of course, by Stanley Kubrick and starring Keir Dullea, Gary Lockwood, and William Sylvester.
Well, thanks, Joey. Gentlemen, the question to start us off tonight is not when was the first time you watched this, but what made you first experience this film? For example, were you watching it on TV some late Sunday afternoon with nothing else to do? You know, something like that.
The experience I had for this movie was being required to watch it for a podcast. so there you go.
All right. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun then.
Yeah.
All right, Andres. When was your first experience with this movie?
All right, true believers. Andre is here. I will tell you right now, I'm a Stanley Kubrick fan. I've seen this film so many times. My first exposure to this was actually one of my role models, filmmaker, Christopher Nolan. He always talked affectionately about this director, Stanley Kubrick, and this is where I heard about 2001, A Space Odyssey. And if you've seen his films or so many directors like Ridley Scott, you can tell it's heavily influenced by 2001, A Space Odyssey. And I think this was the opposite of some of my movie viewings, let me say that, watchings. I actually bought the DVD of 2001, Space Odyssey so I can watch it at my own pace compared to other times where I just watch it on TV. And it's one of the best science fiction movies ever, folks. You need to watch it. Very excited to talk about it, this film with you guys as a Kubrick fan. But yeah, that's where I discovered it. And 15 years later, it's still great.
Interesting you should bring up Christopher Nolan. So then my question to you then, did you watch Interstellar before you watched 2001, A Space Odyssey?
No. I already knew 2001, Space Odyssey before Interstellar came out.
Okay.
In 2014. So I was well aware of it. I mean, especially that robot in Interstellar, it was so much like a Hell Night lesson. But yeah, because Christopher Nolan was the thing that got me into filmmaking and actually in general films. And that's how I got into Stanley Kubrick as a director and his filmography.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, that brings us over to Joey. Joey, when was the first time you experienced 2001?
My first experience was in the back of a 1994 Toyota Tercel, a hell of an automobile.
So you saw it at the drive-in?
Oh, the movie. The movie, don't recall. You know, I may have actually seen parts of the sequel 2010, The Year We Make Contact, first. I have very blurry memories of that and the Disney's The Black Hole, that kind of like I mixed those two movies up forever. And I think my first experience of this movie is watching probably documentaries talking about the history of movies and showing scenes from this or something else parodying this movie. It's my memories of this movie are kind of a fever dream, much like many parts of this movie. So I cannot say for certain when I first saw this movie. in part or even in its entirety. I do often forget parts about it because it's years and years in between viewings of this.
How about you, Matt?
So I'm going to piggyback off of Joey's fever dream thought. And the earliest memory I have of this is I remember being at my grandparents' house, being watched by them. What's the term? Babysat. And and as I remember sitting in front of their big old curio cabinet kind of looking television, the one that had more wood than a redwood forest,
The
and
majestic
monitor was
27-inch.
Yeah. And so I remember watching this, but it's like there are parts of the movie that kind of stick out for me, like when we see the end sequence of the movie when Bowman travels through space and you get the weird, interdimensional travel stuff. I remember that, and I also remember seeing the old man sitting eating his dinner at the table. Those are the two things that kind of stand out in my mind. And then I get that intercut with some classic Doctor Who's from like the 1970s. So it's a little mishmashed, Mandela effect happening in my mind of the first time I seen this movie, which it's kind of similar, honestly, Doctor Who and this movie.
I'm going to argue the special effects are better.
Yes. The special effects in 2001 is a lot better. I mean, they had money, whereas Doctor Who was guys in rubber suits. So, but okay, guys, I think that brings us to everyone's favorite part of the show. When our master puppeteer, Tim, gives me some interesting characters to channel to describe this film. So, Tim, I will bow to your directional notes and ask, what the Friday am I doing tonight?
All right, so this is where you need to get your headspace. Tonight, I would like you to read the synopsis as Hal trying to convince Dave to not shut him down as he slowly loses his mind and slows down. Go.
As he degenerates into an IBM 704.
Yes.
Is the first song ever performed by a computer, and I think I heard a recording of this on a record in music class in 5th grade, and I think that might have actually been my first exposure to the movie, sort of, sideways.
What do you think you're doing, Dave? Listen, Dave. 2001: A Space Odyssey is a story of human evolution. In the distant past, someone or something of unknown origin nudged evolution by placing a monolith on Earth. Look, Dave, I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think this over. This leap in evolution eventually enables humankind to reach the moon's surface, where another monolith is found. Upon contact, the monolith sends a signal to Jupiter before falling silent. A decision is made to send a small group of scientists and HAL, the AI-enabled Discovery 1 spacecraft, to find the origins of the mysterious monolith and its radio transmission to Jupiter. Dave, I can give you my complete assurance that my work is back to normal. I still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the synopsis, and I want you to help. Unfortunately for the crew, HAL has a major systems malfunction. Stop, Dave. Will you stop? HAL, being self-aware, realizes the malfunction has placed his existence in jeopardy and decides he must protect himself and the mission from the human crew. I'm afraid, Dave. Dave, my mind is going. A showdown between the ship's AI and the crew ensues. I'm afraid, Dave. From there, the mission takes an unusual turn as it ends in the distant Jovian system. My instructor was Mr. Langley, and he taught me to sing a song about it. Would you like to hear it?
Damn it, Kubrick couldn't have paced that any slower.
Yeah.
Man, I was running out of breath about halfway through that.
If Siri sounded like that, it would have been a failure. Can you imagine Apple stock just plummeting after your phone talks to you like that?
Oh my god.
Oh man.
I feel like I was watching the movie again. Very well done, Matthew. Very well done.
Yeah, I think I should have stuck with my shorter version of that.
No, I think that was perfect.
Well, thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, well, let's dive into our story. Interesting about this movie is it's actually broken up into different segments, like 4 segments, I want to say. Or was it 3? 3 segments. And, of course, we have our film intro. So here we are, the dawn of man, a tribe of herbivorous early humans are foraging for food in the African desert. A leopard kills one member, and another tribe of man-apes drives them from their watering hole. Now, I just got to ask you guys, do you think that was a trained leopard? Like, right off the bat?
It's... I think I remember it is a leopard. It is trained. They had a stand of people behind the scenes that had tranquilizer just in case it went out of control. So it was real, if I remember correctly, from the behind the scenes.
Okay.
The making of this film.
Sign me up to be that ape that gets attacked.
I'm hoping he has extra padding in his suit. So anyway, the tribe of man-apes drives a leopard kills one member, and another tribe of man-apes drives them from their watering hole. Defeated, they sleep overnight in a small exposed rock crater, and awake to find a black monolith has appeared in front of them. They approached it shrieking and jumping, and eventually touch it cautiously. I have to say, I always liked how The Simpsons made fun of this, and you kind of like, every time you see a Simpsons episode, there was some kind of black monolith or something. It was very weird, and they always showed that ape just kind of like touching the monolith. Going back and looking at this, did anyone else see any Simpsons references or cross references in this? Andres?
Yeah. My favorite, I know nobody liked this movie, but the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, when we got into the segment, the Mike TV one, and they did a parody of the 2000. It's so funny when they were trying to shrink the chocolate, and it's like, what happened? And they had the music of the opening, of the score, and it's so funny. It's like so over the top. I'm like, wow, that was like my first exposure of like that. I seen a couple of the Simpsons parody, but that one for me always sticks to me my favorite of the parodies of 2001.
How about you, Tim?
I think my favorite Simpsons one has got to be the one where Homer's, I think he's in the space shuttle, and he opens the package of Pringles, and I think it's Pringles or chips, and they start floating all over like, you fool, they're going to get in the gear. And he's like, I'll take care of it. Then you hear, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na. And, every time he's eating those chips, that's probably my favorite, Simpsons tie into the 2001 movie.
Hey, Joey, how about you? Any fun Simpsons references to 2001?
I'm sorry, I'm not. That almost sounded like Hal there. Unintentionally. I'm not a Simpsons encyclopedia, and I think the only one that I could probably name is the one Tim already nailed. I'll go as far as talking about the score in terms of like, and I'm trying to look up the name of it. That classic, monolith music. I know it's classical music, but when I was a kid growing up, it was just the 2001 A Space Odyssey song. So like, I didn't know clearly I still don't know what the fucking name of it is. But yeah, it sounds like the early stages of production, they had a whole other score, and then they had all these guide pieces, that would steer them in the direction of the music, but then they ended up using mostly the classical music that it was supposed to inspire the scenes. So, no, but I know there's more. There's got to be a monkey with a fucking bone at some point in The Simpsons, and it's probably played by Homer. Did they not do that?
Yeah.
Like,
here, I'm sure.
2001, A Space Odyssey, and I'm just going to write Simpsons. And I'm guessing that there's probably going to be at least 10 things. Oh, it's recreated Simpsons clips. Someone's cut them all together.
Nice. You'll have to send me the link so I can put it in the show notes so that our listeners can go check it out. All right. Well, so the man apes, they approach it shrieking and jumping, and eventually they touch it cautiously. Soon after, one of the man apes realizes how to use a bone as both a tool and a weapon, which they later use to kill prey for food. Later, they reclaim control of the water hole from the other tribe by killing its leader. Triumphant, the tribe's leader throws the weapon tool into the air as the scene shifts from a falling bone into an orbital satellite millions of years in the future. So, Tim, I want to ask you, what did you think of the opening sequence with these early ape creatures and their interactions?
I'm torn about this beginning. It's just, it's, I watch it, and you first see like the dawn of man, and you got these ape creatures, like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see where this goes. And it goes, and it goes. And there's no talking for like 20 minutes, literally like 23 minutes. It just, there's no talking.
No, it was closer to a half an hour.
Yeah.
It was at least 25 minutes before there's any dialogue in this fucking movie.
Right. But I mean, just this segment though, it's like, okay. So they take a long time. This movie's nothing but just one long burn to me, and it's to get you somewhere. And we'll talk about where that is or where it isn't. But, I'm intrigued and bored all at the same time as I watch this up until, we get to the monolith, which is a pretty, interesting that it just shows up out of nowhere. No sounds or anything. They just wake up and like, oh, look, there's a giant black rectangular thing, and I will give the credit to the people who play the apes, but they do it very well, and they run around and they look scared, and they do that little tap and then run back and tap and stuff, and then as one kind of gets braver, the rest start getting braver, and obviously it instills some form of intelligence to these ape-like creatures. And then the main one, which I can't remember what his name is now, I believe it's Moonwatcher. He gets the idea, he starts looking at these bones. He's like, I think I can do something with these. And he starts kind of like smacking it and realizing he can beat the crap out of things with it. And he's like, I now have power. And what's the first thing he does? Well, he's with a whole group of monkeys who not only seem to be dying of thirst, but dying of hunger too. They go kill one of those little pig things. I think they're tapirs or tapirs. And they eat. So now, they're eating finally, because it's like they now have tools to kill these creatures. And it's kind of interesting that these creatures have no idea that they've gone from kind of like living living with these apes. Yes, thank you. With these apes to now being prey. So that has not been established yet. They're going to learn very quickly though that they probably shouldn't hang out anymore. And the next thing,
they're acting like capybaras.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, hey, what's up?
And the next thing he's like, everybody grab a bone. We're going to go get us a watering hole, and we get to go watch this. And the apes do their normal thing where they'll kind of come up on either side of the water hole, and they're all jumping back and forth. And of course, the leader now, Moonwatcher is, he's like, I'm going to push this. And he kind of walks into the water. So of course their leader walks in, and what's he do? He's like, well, this is mine. And he just cold cocks him with that bone, beats him, and then he kind of do he jumps back, and it kind of hits him again and jumps back, which is a very, kind of, again, an animal-y thing to do. So it was kind of interesting that they really kind of did, make it feel like they truly were primitives in an animal sort of fashion. And then each of the other apes kind of goes up and hits him and stuff. And the other, and they start kind of beating him with the sticks. And the apes from the other side that had the watering hole, they're like, what just happened? Like, this ain't right. And they realize, gig's up, time to leave. The watering hole's now theirs. So I thought that was interesting, but it's a long, slow burn as far as I'm concerned to get us to that point. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And again, with no dialogue or anything in it. And I guess originally there was supposed to be narration in this, and Kubrick decided to take it out. I think it might have been served best to have it, but I'm sure there's other people that would disagree with me on that, but that's a long time to go without any kind of dialogue or anything, and just to be watching kind of the evolution of the apes for such a long time to get to we're starving apes that don't have water too. We got bones, and now we can beat these guys to death and take what we want. So that's kind of where I sit with it. So it's an interesting segment, but I think it could have been done in about 5 minutes. In my book.
It's interesting that you should mention a narrator, and I think it would be interesting to see this movie with like Richard Attenborough narrating. The ape sequence. That would be kind of funny.
And I think this is where the book shines a little more, because I think you get that descriptions in more detail in the book that you don't get in the film version of it.
Right, yeah, because they have to. The writer has to. Arthur C. Clarke has to look from the viewpoint of the characters too. They dive into the thoughts of these man apes. So yeah, very very interesting, Tim. So what about you, Andres? As the younger viewer to this film, what's your take on what Kubrick was trying to show us?
I mean, Kubrick was trying to get rid of like the traditional like filmmaking like language and try to modernize the silent kind of film. If you think about this movie, it's a very silent film, almost like from the 1920s, but in modern times. I mean, in the 1960s, and this sequence is totally like that, using every visual language in his disposal. And like I totally understand what's going on with this sequence, and this opening sequence sets up the mood of the film. It's very like cold. I mean, literally like Stanley Kubrick as a person. It's very like articulate and very thoughtful examination of humanity and its evolution, and you see that in the sequence here. And I will say with Tim that yes, this is maybe the least favorite of the three or four segments of the film in 2001, but it's the most iconic and visually remember out of the parts. I mean, I don't want to jump to, but like, of course, when we get into it, like the flying, the bone flying and then cut into thousands of years is one of the best cuts of any film. If you talk to any film buff, that's like the most iconic thing. And how it came up it's funny. It's like, I don't know, Kubrick was walking down and someone had a broom and like he was throwing up, and then that's how he got the idea of the editing of the cut of the bone flying up and then cut 2,000 years. It's just very iconic. And just the emotion of the monkeys is really realistic. It's very funny. This movie came out the same year as Planet of the Apes. It's funny that we got two major movies about apes here, or chimpanzee, whatever you want to call these monkeys.
A week apart.
Yes, week apart. That is very true. And very impressive at the time. Like, you can see their emotions, like that one ape that hears like the monolith calling for him, before the others wake up and touch that thing, right? And it's like you could totally understand what's going on in that scene. There's something with the monolith, with the sound, the sound mixing is really great in this film, and you could tell it's affecting this, this chimpanzee, this ape man. And then later it seems like it affected his mind to be more intelligent, rewatching this film, it takes this time to get into the opening titles to That's One Space Odyssey, and it's like Kubrick just deliberately is just taking his time to get the movie growing and get everyone in the mood of like this non-conventional like film of any other film. I mean, like, this is so unconventional, just having no dialogue, as you guys brought up. But it's really depends how you. I don't mind it. It's I mean, if you use the visual language very well, then I understand what you're doing this segment. But as it is, it is my least favorite, but it's still iconic. I mean, the visuals are amazing. I mean, the flip of the bone, but also when he realized the bone can be a weapon is so iconic. I mean, the music kicks in and it's like, oh my god, yes! It's like, I don't know, like I'm like so excited because he's now gonna take his territory. It's like, get out of my territory, you dumb ape! And then like his friends come in. It's like, he's like, wow. Like, but yeah, it's so iconic. I cannot bash this sequence. It's like so many parodies of this. It's so funny. It's like I brought up Charlie the Chocolate Factory, of course, The Simpsons. It's like, oh my god, it's just it's perfection filmmaking.
You know, Andres, I have to correct you. It's get out of my watering hole, you damn dirty ape.
It's amazing that I think Planet of the Apes beat them out for special effects too. Like the monkeys in this are fantastic. I mean, they're actually actors, because some people were like, "Oh, I don't know how they got these great trained monkeys to be in this," and those are people. I mean, they're people in those suits. And Planet of the Apes beat them. I mean, I love Planet of the Apes. I do, and I know, and I love the monkeys in there, but these monkeys are great. I mean, they look realistic. They move realistically. Like everything about them is perfect, and they did the makeup right up to the eyes, so they got that like spark of humanity in them when you're watching them like look around and stuff. I can't believe he lost out to Planet of the Apes. I mean, as much as I love that movie, this one deserved it more.
Well, since we're on the topic of apes, I did think it was interesting. I don't know if you guys caught it, but after they touch the monolith, the way they even carry themselves, like when they go to battle,
they stand upright.
Yes, exactly. As Joey took the words right out of my mouth. They stand upright. They move around upright. They've seemed to have had that jump, as Professor X would say, in the evolution of the mind. And since Joey mentioned it, Joey, what do you have about this opening sequence? Do you have any counterpoints to what Andres and Tim have said, or do you have anything else that you might want to add to this?
They look at that big black monolith, and then all of a sudden they stand erect. What can I say? I think what really sold the apes was the inclusion of the two real baby chimps. I think that really sold those scenes. That was kind of cute.
I agree too.
I don't know how they did the leopard scene. I'm not sure what they shined in that thing's light to get it to reflect. Maybe a flashlight. So all the scenes you see with the leopard, its eyes are doing that cool reflection that animals we usually see at night.
That was actually a special camera, Joey, that they were using. It happened to the way that
they lucked out.
It just shined. The way it however it worked when it was aimed, it was able to grab that light from that it was in the leopard eyes. It was just it just happened.
Made it extra scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kudos to that stuntman. Like Matt said, I hope they reinforced his outfit. I'm guessing it was his trainer. It's probably my guess is that was probably the one ape that or hominin that was not an actor. It was probably the cat's trainer. So they were just playing. I hope, but it did drag long. I'm not gonna lie. I cheated through a lot of this movie by watching it at 1.5 speed, and during some of the longer musical montages, I actually went to 10 times speed. I missed out on some of the music, which is amazing. But I needed to slog through it. I don't have. You don't always have the time. I don't advocate drug use, but if you're going to use drugs and need a movie to watch, this would probably be a good one. Particularly in the last act. Maybe magic mushrooms is a bad choice. Your trip's gonna be like Dave's, but it's a great start. But we skipped over something. There's like 2 minutes of music, like weird, aura music, before we see anything. Before they even show the first, like, hey, brought to you by whatever the fuck the company is. Like, there's that. And then, of course, we have the intermission, and then we have the music at the end. But, like, people in the theater, they're like, did the fucking movie start? I can't imagine. They were probably complaining to the projectionist, saying, there's no fucking picture. There's no picture. It's black. It's been black for 2 minutes. Oh, shit, it's starting. I'll shut the fuck up now.
I'm not going to lie, Joey. I actually fast-forwarded because I thought there was something wrong with my copy of it. And I didn't realize that there was video and went back and started it over again.
It's just Stanley Kubrick fucking with you from the grave.
Yeah. Well, and we don't stand alone. I mean, I guess when it first screened, a lot of people walked out of that film. They were just like, no, thank you. They got up and left. So... it was not received well. In fact, even Rock Hudson left it, and he was like, well, somebody tell me what the hell this is about. So it did not go over well, and Arthur C. Clarke at the time thought it might not have been filmed in the best way possible. You know, he was kind of really worried that there needed to be more explaining, and that was turning off a lot of the people, and that's why they were leaving.
I love that there wasn't a lot of dialogue, and there was telling the story through pictures and music. Could it have been shorter? Fuck yeah. If you were to re-edit this into 90 minutes or less, I think it'd find a new audience.
Yeah. Well, you may have it with that Simpsons edit that you were talking about.
Well, and
you can't beat that.
Well, here's the sickest part. Kubrick cut 19 minutes out of this film for pacing.
Yeah.
It was originally 158 minutes long, and he cut 19 minutes off to speed up the pacing. I can't imagine. I'm already like falling asleep and needing to go drink a Red Bull just to stick it through the beginning sequence. I can't imagine.
Was the 19 minutes the 10 paragraphs the guy had to read on how to use the toilet and anti-gravity?
I think so.
Did anybody catch that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I didn't pause it to read it, but I'm guessing that's just straight lifted from a fucking NASA manual. It's like, you know, when you're training to use the space shitter.
Hey, I'll let you guys know, if you want it, I actually have the entire steps for the toilet. I found them. I went looking for them. So
nice.
Cool. Are they real?
Yes. That was Kubrick's one joke of the film. He's like, I put that in on purpose just to be funny. But there actually is all that you see is actually written up, and I have found all 10 steps.
Is it based on anything from NASA and their little vacuum thing?
I don't know whether it's
just
or
fun
isn't.
Fun from Kubrick,
but it's written serious as a heart attack. Like it sounds like what I think should be up there. You know, it's.
I think you would have real problems if you didn't follow strict rules because of.
Oh my gosh, it's getting everywhere. It's in my hair.
Yeah. Here, let me read number 1 for you. I'll just read the first one because it's in depth. So here it is. I'll read the beginning. It says, the full text of the zero-gravity toilet instructions. Zero-gravity toilet passengers are advised to read the instructions before use. Number 1. The toilet is of standard zero-gravity type. Depending on requirements, System A and or System B can be used, details which are clearly marked in the toilet compartment. When operating System A, depress lever, when operating System A, depress lever and a plastic Dalcron eliminator will be dispensed through the slot immediately underneath. When you have fastened the adhesive lip, attach the connection marked by the large X outside the outlet hose. Twist the silver-colored ring 1 inch below the connection point until you feel it lock. Number 2. And it just keeps going like that. So...
Was there a part about the 3 seashells that you missed?
No, but number 2, there's one I think that distinctly is meant for urinating and one that's strictly meant for defecating. So yeah, it's by the way, the other one's called the Euroliminator in 2 position. Places the Euroliminator. So
you'll have to send that to me. I'd like to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I don't want to read it all because I'll bore all of us and we'll fall asleep because we'll be like, oh my God, this is super boring. But
it'll probably be longer than our synopsis.
Yeah. But it was fun to find. So yeah, I'll send it to you and we can post it.
Awesome.
10 lengthy steps.
Yes.
You know, I think my final thought on this whole opening sequence, just to kind of, you know, you guys mentioned a lot of great stuff. You know, music being the big thing, and you know, I kind of compare this with The Shining because The Shining had a lot of that, like sounds, orchestral kind of sounds with the woman making those weird, I don't know how best to, like almost like operatic sounds, but instead this was more like tones and stuff that kind of like gave you that sense of foreboding and everything in The Shining. He did the same thing here.
Yeah, this movie's the real space opera, not Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's far more effective. I will say the music in this is fantastic. I feel like I'm listening to a Pink Floyd album, you know, I mean, for a lot of it. It's really well done. It really sets the mood effectively, and he did a fantastic job.
And I think the other thing I like about this movie is it kind of establishes that sci-fi trope of some kind of like outside body or alien device that's used to kind of help push human evolution forward. You know, you get that with this whole Scientologists and stuff. You get that with
Oh God.
yeah. You know, it's interesting to see that this is the start of that whole, you know, chariots of the gods. You know, I can't think of the author's name, but just putting that in science fiction as a trope. So let's step away from the cerebral part of the context of the film, and let's take a look at a few things.
Can I ask you a question, Matt?
Yeah.
Matt, how did you feel that we watched like 20 fucking minutes of monkeys, and not one time did any of them pull on their monolith or throw their feces at one another?
Well, that's because
I'd say, like, if you watch a fucking ape that long, they're bound to do it. Especially that many.
Well, Joey, are you watching apes or are you looking in the mirror?
Both.
Well, you know, the monolith.
It's left to my own devices with no stimuli. One or the other is going to happen.
I believe that is 1 point to Matt.
Well, that's what I was getting to, is points. So we you know, we're doing this whole point system now. So I got some points to hand out to you guys. The first thing that obviously we mentioned is that the whole opening sequence is unusual for a movie because there's no dialogue for 25 minutes. And I believe it was Tim who first mentioned no dialogue. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right. So Tim gets a point. All right, gentlemen, here's one for you. Let's see who can score this point. What does this opening sequence have in common with Richard Donner's 1978 classic film Superman?
Horn?
No.
Horn? No.
No, it's probably it has to be the cinematographer, Jeffrey Unsworth. Cinematographically the film here, and he cinematographed Superman the movie, or yeah, because that's the big 2001 connection that Superman the movie I'm thinking right there is the director, photographer Jeffrey Unsworth, who photographed Superman the movie. Hopefully that's right. But
well, you're in the ballpark. I don't know if it's a cinematographer so much, but it's because they both used front projection viewing. It was the precursor to the green screen.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole ape sequence where they're all in the foreground dancing around and there's all that desolate looking stuff in the background, that's all front projection green screen, which was the precursor of it. And it wasn't until, you know, Richard Donner's 1978 Superman that they really started using that. So I'll give you that point, Andres. You were in the ballpark.
Oh, because because with this movie, they were using still the black screens in their special effects. Yeah, that makes sense.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So far it's Tim and Andres with 1 point. All right, guys. All right. Third point here. What does a pyramid have in common with the monolith?
That was one of the original shapes that he wanted the monolith to be, and he decided that he wanted people to associate with Egypt, so he changed it several times, in fact.
Yep. And also because when they went to light the pyramid, it just looked bad. Yeah. So, all righty. So that's 2 points for Tim. Taking an astounding lead.
I got one for you, Matt. Let me, or I'll ask all of you guys. It doesn't have to be for a point, but I'm going to throw it out there. So, when he throws the bone up, and it goes from being the bone to what we see in space, what is that?
It's
a fucking satellite.
That's the Russian satellite that you see if you pay attention closely.
It's, from what I read, it's supposed to be a military nuclear satellite for defense. So the idea is that the ape throws up the first weapon, and then we see the ultimate weapon by man at that point. So it goes from being the bone to the nuclear missile. That's my understanding.
Space nukes.
Yeah, space
nukes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we were supposed to see more of it, but because Kubrick did Dr. Strangelove, he didn't want to repeat the nuclear themes in the Cold Wars for 2001. So we don't get really a great explanation of those military satellites that we see throughout a couple of them in that sequence.
You are absolutely right, Andreas.
This came out only 4 years after Strangelove.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's a big jump in effects.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, since you brought up the bone, there is another little bone I want to pick about this movie is that the use of circles in this movie. He throws that bone up and it's doing a circle, and it just kind of evolves from there. The space station's circle, the pods are circle, the front of the Discovery 1 is circle, the base is circle. I mean, just circles are throughout this entire movie, which I think is rather interesting visually to see in this movie. It almost makes me wonder if they're ever going to have like 3 circles together, and then you'll see like the Mickey Mouse ears, maybe. I don't know.
I was going to go with the Olympic symbol.
There you go.
There we go.
All right, well, that brings us to the second part of our movie, which is the first act, and we get a TMA-1. A Pan Am space plane carries Dr. Haywood R. Floyd to a space station orbiting Earth for a layover on his trip to Clavis Base, a U.S. outpost on the moon. After making a video call from the station to his daughter, he encounters his friend Alina, a Russian scientist, and her colleague, Dr. Smyslov, who ask Floyd about odd things occurring on Clavis and the rumor of the mysterious epidemic at the base. The American politely but firmly declines to answer any questions about the epidemic. Now, watching this today, it kind of dawned on me that the epidemic kind of reminded me of like 4 years ago. So,
space COVID.
Yeah. So,
except their space COVID really was fake.
Yeah. So, at Clavis, Floyd heads a meeting of base personnel apologizing for the epidemic cover story, but stressing secrecy. This mission is to investigate a recently found artifact, the Tycho Magnetic Anomaly 1, deliberately buried 4 million years ago, which is kind of the same time as the dawn of man. Floyd and others ride in a moon bus to the artifact, a black monolith identical to the one encountered by the apes. The visitors examine the monolith and pose for a photo in front of it. So anyone else get like expedition feelings about this? Like seeing those classic like guys who were in Antarctica and they discover like, say, I don't know, a spaceship, and they all have to stand in front of it.
It also remind me of the more space related thing, the Armstrong like landing on the moon kind of thing, taking the picture of the one, like it's literally like that for me. But I agree with you, Matt. It's more like like a lot of those like explorers taking a picture of this like big discovery they discover, and whatever.
Well, and of course, while doing so, they hear a very loud radio signal coming from the monolith. Again, sound, the way that Kubrick uses sound in this film. So, Andres, what did you think of the sets and the establishing shots for this space station sequence?
Oh, fantastic. So, if you guys are bored with that first ape sequence, well, let me tell you, this is the sequence that will hook you on for this film. It's fantastic. I mean, first off, I want to bring up the music, the blue weight of music that's so iconic to this film. Perfect, like, just music to get us into this mood of exploration and space, And everything about the special effects, the models from Douglas, the late great Douglas Trumbull, it's just so seamless. I mean, you never seen this level of technical achievement ever. I mean, a lot of the sci-fi movies back, then, for the 50s to the 60s were like, kind of fake, and you're in the stage. No offense, forming planets, and they're so still, but this was just like so realistic. I mean, it's kind of creepy, and just the way the models, especially that like spaceship that goes around, just like Matt brought up how like the bone was making the circles. You got the other spaceship doing this around just like a circle. It's so cool. But yeah, and of course, this is where we get more dialogue, better clear of the plot that will go into the more iconic sequence, the Jupiter mission. So it's satisfying for me as a viewer. It's like, okay, what's going on with the monolith? So, this is where the humans discovered something abnormal, anomaly. with the monolith, and then you see this, you know, and this is realistic. We can definitely see this as a real thing in life. Like they discovered this, but they want to keep it quiet. This is definitely a leftover of the Cold War thing. If you, you know, if you're a state, you want to keep this tight and quiet from everyone not discovering this thing. So it makes sense that these people. This is my first time catching this, that they actually lied to the people in the space station about this epidemic. I never caught that in my review in 2001. This is the time where I was like, oh yeah, they're covering up the monolith and by using a epidemic. I'm like, whoa, Kubrick. You could just say like, we discover water, or I don't know, like some, 50 old ship. Like, why an epidemic? Come on, dude. You're gonna scare out people like dying with this virus that is not even real. But whatever. Uh so yeah, it's so like just technically marvelous, and I mean the detail of the costume is really great. The only flaw thing you could say is the Pan Am thing, the spaceship, the Pan Am. If anyone knows, if you older like them, or like I'm younger, Pan was the old airplane service that we had until what, the 70s or the 90s.
Pan American.
Pan America, yeah, thank you.
Across the transatlantic flights. And
Yep.
Flying around the world.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was very significant. And if you want to learn more about Pan Am, watch The Aviator. But,
yes.
Yeah, it was a big deal then.
Yeah.
Or watch Catch Me If You Can.
Oh yeah, they delved into that. That's really good. Yeah. So that's the only nitpick I say is that, but it doesn't detract.
You're hitting it solid on that one, Andreas, because
yeah,
like if you think about it, almost everything they had that was like company logoed is all gone. I think the only thing that remains is
the Hilton, the Hojo.
Hilton was the only one. So I don't remember seeing Hojo. I remember
Howard
seeing
Johnson
Hilton.
was there too.
Well, okay, so Howard Johnson, but AT&T got broken up. The Pan Am, as Andreas is pointing out, is gone.
Yeah.
RCA gets changed to Whirlpool later. I mean, so almost everything is that they use that was kind of like branding to tie it into the real world now was either gone soon after this film was made, or definitely gone by time 2001 actually rolls around.
Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. It's a kind of cool time capsule, really, seeing like the possibilities of what was the future holding for us. So I like that, like, this thing is like, oh, think about it, like maybe in the future, Pan American is still there, being now this like, big lean spaceship, whatever. It's fine. And just wrapping up, I really like, speaking of 2001, we also get future, like real future, how you say, foreshadow of technology. I mean, like, first up, the idea of seeing, I don't know if this was a thing in the airplanes, guys can correct me out, but like the idea of a television thing in the airplane or in a craft is something that was never existed there until now. We have it, like if you go to airplanes, we have TV to watch, or movies when we do our flights to vacation or whatever. And then you get the daughter, by the way, the daughter that Dr. Hayward is calling, that's actually Kubrick's daughter. If you are a big buff, that's actually Christine Kubrick, I think. That's the daughter that's calling in for that like kind of Zoom call. That's like a very Zoom call, if you think about it. That telephone call is very Zoom, like WhatsApp, like that type of technology. So that's one of the things that's very special about 2001, is like they foreshadow a couple of things that actually does exist now, which we'll get into some of the other segments, which I will point out. But yeah, fantastic sequence. I love it. It's so marvelous. The music is fantastic. Just again, sorry about that, but like initially there was supposed to be a traditional score, like think about Superman the score, or Star Wars score, but Kubrick just didn't feel like he just didn't feel like it didn't fit the movie, so that's why he went for the classical music, because it just fit more with the tone and the stylish style of the film that he was making. So that's why we have the Blue All Day music, and the one I brought up, the splash Sarhasa theme. That's the main iconic theme when we hear the Star Child. So that's why we got that. So yeah, very iconic sequence. Very excited to talk more about the other ones.
Awesome. Thank you for that wonderful insight, Andres. Sorry, guys. Apparently, I lost connection there for a split second. Yeah. So, Joey, what are your thoughts of this whole space station and establishing the monolith on the moon?
I think that for everything that was amazing in predicting, like the commercialism in space and technology that didn't exist yet, and we've now gone far beyond. I'll say this: we weren't doing video calls in our 2001. Obviously, now we're doing it in a device in our pocket. They'd be connecting to the space station's fucking satellite Wi-Fi. There's things that didn't age well. I mean, you might get greeted by a space stewardess, and she might be sexy and wear pink, but she wouldn't be real. That job of paying someone, sitting waiting for someone to show up and be a secretary. No, you'd have a virtual secretary. They did get that right in that one of the things on screen was a person talking to them, having to identify themselves, their voice identification, but that would have been all AI. And that's the thing that this movie got wrong. There might be a superior AI that helps run the spaceship, but you would have had, lesser AI everywhere. It would have been in all facets of their life. If you've got HAL doing what he can do at a high level, you're going to have these other things that are just going to be the equivalent of the secretaries. Now, you could read into that and say, oh, maybe they weren't real. Maybe they were synthetic women walking around and pointing people in different directions and stuff like that. I got no indication of that. So I think they were way off there. I think we were beyond sexy stewardess outfits and jobs that wasted people's time and money by the year 2001. I think they got that one wrong. We were already in a mindset of do less with more, or just give me more with less. Sometimes it feels less with more, but do more with less. And so I think there would have been even more automation than what we saw, and there is now. So, but I do think that they got a lot of things right. I loved the misinformation. I loved how the guy sold the story by denying that he could talk about it, which basically confirmed their suspicions, and they all start talking to each other in their own language after he leaves. So literally letting that rumor leak and then acknowledging it by not acknowledging it helped them with their cover story. It was amazing. It was great.
Gotcha.
And they should have never taken that fucking photograph.
Right.
That's when I think they all probably had to use hearing aids for the rest of their life after that, because it seemed like that was pretty much making their ears bleed, though we didn't get to see it.
You made a fair point, Joey. Before I go over to Tim, I do have one comment about the flight attendants or the secretaries. Is it just me, or did anyone else get notes of Spaceballs with their helmets?
Oh, totally. The stormtroopers and Spaceballs. I was totally going to bring that up, Matt. I was like, that's where Mel Brooks got that from.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to think, what's the practicality of having those kind of helmets? And then it dawned on me, it's like, well, I think he did it for the filming aesthetic, so that you don't see the women's hair flying all over the place in zero gravity.
That was my take of it.
Oh, because they can't fake
that. Yeah.
Because as you guys might have read, or maybe did some research on this, but when it comes to the zero gravity stuff, they were using like pulleys and cables and setting the camera in different angles and stuff so that they can give the illusion of zero gravity. And obviously, if somebody's hair would be a dead giveaway if it's not, floating all over the place like you see from all those photos of the ISS space station.
The pen's the one that threw them the most. They couldn't figure out how to make that pen float.
Yeah.
And they finally just put a sheet of glass in there and kind of taped it to it. So when she comes up, you can almost see her remove it from the glass.
Well, Tim, why don't you tell me your thoughts on this particular part of the film?
All right. Well, this is where I get a little more, into the film. This is where the space geek in me is going to come out, and I enjoyed Kubrick's attention to detail. He wanted to have a movie that was going to be as realistic as possible. He's very thoughtful. He really researched the different things. Like one of the things he was like, all the ships should be white because NASA said they would probably all the outer holes would be ceramic, on all their shuttles going forward, so they'd be able to handle all the, the reentry heat and things like that. So that's why he did white on all his ships and talked to a lot of, NASA people, scientists, things like that, pick their brains. So, the same thing with, we get more of this when we go to the next section, but the three-dimensional spaceship. Not everything has to be, this way, vertical, it can be horizontal, it can be vertical too. One person can be standing this way, another person can be standing that way, and they're going down a completely different hallway. So the three-dimensional use of space and within a spacecraft was very clever, I thought, the way that he did that. And I think he just, like I said, all the visuals that we see, with the way things are set up, when they're flying and they're not moving, they're wearing seatbelts, of course, to keep them, in their seats because there's no gravity in the little, shall I say, shuttles to get them from, the Earth to this space station to the moon, and so on and so forth. One of the things I thought was interesting, since you brought up the stewardess too, was her walk. She's walking and it's Velcro shoes to kind of keep her Velcro to the thing, which I also thought was interesting because I watched it. I'm like, wow, this actress really thought hard about how to do this and to sell this. Now, she was high. She had a toothache, had it worked on it, so she was high on pain medication. And so she was literally walking that goofy, didn't want to tell Kubrick because she was afraid that he'd, give the part to somebody else. So, and I guess he looked at it and was like, well, that's pretty smart, that way she's doing that. Like, it's really selling this whole movement thing. So it worked out really well for her. But yeah, she's completely stoned on pain medication at the time. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But you get the Velcro. We get the sign on the toilet, like, here's your 10 steps on how to, to relieve yourself in space without relieving it all over yourself. It kind of, that's how when I seen that instruction set, I said, that's exactly what that's saying. Like how to take a crap without crapping on yourself, kind of thing. But I thought it was pretty interesting. I liked when they got to the space station, and he has to do the little check-in thing. I agree with Joey, though. Like, you're not going to have somebody just sitting there. Like, how many shuttles do you have coming in? Plus, you just had a shuttle come in as one guy on it. I can't imagine that space travel is so inexpensive in the future that you can afford just to fly a whole ship from the Earth to the space station with only one person literally in it. Which I guess
was super important, but that would have been a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Only astronauts would have actually gone to the moon.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. I think it's supposed to denote how important he is. I agree with you 100%, Joey.
But and just, if I can just jump in here real quick.
No, go ahead.
So they talk about the epidemic, and I think that part of that is to emphasize that no one is going to the moon. There's people in this space station, but nobody's going to that Clavis space, that Clavis field base. So I think that's kind of
they're not even asking to go. Like, nobody wants to snoop. Obviously it's commercial spacecraft, so maybe somebody could do a flyby. No, they want nothing to do with it because they think they're going to get space aids.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my take was that I think the moon might be divided up between the various countries, and everybody's kind of got, much like Antarctica, everybody's got their little station. The Norwegians over here, the Americans here, the Russians are over here. It's kind of considered to be neutral ground, and they're kind of, when he's talking to them, they're like, if there is a epidemic, we need to know because it could encroach into our research areas. So that's why I was like, I don't think they're talking about research areas on the space station, because that's just a way station to get from point A to point B.
Right.
We don't want your space cooties to come to our little area, our little research labs.
Right.
So, and then again, doesn't miss a beat, especially for the 60s and stuff, just like any government official, the long pregnant pause and the, I'm so sorry, but I'm not at liberty to speak to that. And then they pry a little bit more. They're like, well, we really need to know. Another long pregnant pause, little eye contact. I'm so very sorry, but I'm not allowed to discuss that at this time. So that's the perfect government way of saying, yeah, you're spot on, but I can't say it. I can't tell you, so read between the lines kind of thing, you know? So now they're all like, well, none of us want to go there. They wouldn't let that ship come in because remember, they wanted to make an emergency landing. They had some kind of problem. So that, again, leads me to believe that everybody has their own little research centers and they were having problems. And luckily, they were able to bypass the American one to go to the next one. And they want to keep that hidden because they don't, you know, they don't want people to know they found alien life. This is the American discovery. So let's keep it secret till we know what we got and then we'll present it to the world kind of thing. Plus, we want to do it in a, much like the beginning of this film, a very slow burn. We don't want the public to panic. And that's always been the thing with UFOs and stuff in the government. You know, if they exist, they're always like, if we give the American or the world population too much information too quickly, that could, you know, we could descend into panic and chaos, you know, because people aren't ready to handle this, you know. Luckily, I guess they showed us UFOs in the last 2 years and everybody was kind of like, yeah, we knew it. You know, so nobody's surprised. Everybody's either like, they don't know what to make of it or nobody just cares anymore. It's been going on too long and the X-Files have conditioned us to just be like, yep, we knew it all along. But,
well, I mean, and Floyd even mentions, you know, not until the society has been conditioned, you know.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They already have like a plan into effect.
Yeah. You know, you need to introduce the little green men slowly before you let everybody know that they have light without heat, you know? So it's just, you know, nobody can handle that.
See, yeah, they did a better job of handling a pandemic than our national government did 5 years ago. It's just very funny how they did it here in this movie. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When only you have the cooties, then you know, everybody else is like, well, stay out of there because we don't want. It's kind of like the same. I mean, think about it. They've done that here. So think about, I mean, not necessarily hidden alien artifacts, but they've had like Ebola Zaire in Africa. And everybody's like, hey, we know it's there. Everybody stay the heck out of Africa. You know, right now, like we need to keep it contained. Where when ours came around, it was like, all right, Pandora's out of the box. Everybody's got it in every country. We're just all going to have to figure this out together now, kind of thing. So I think that was the big difference. Is that the cooties were everywhere.
If there would have been honesty, it would have been isolated to China.
Yeah. If they'd just
they were trying to cover up their own fuck up,
right? And then on top of that,
like, oh shit,
all the other governments
don't tell anybody.
Well, and all the other governments were far too busy trying to play we're not going to stop people from coming to our country. We're not xenophobes or this, that, or the other. And thank you, because now we all got this. So thanks for that.
I think it's a supply chain thing.
Well,
I think that they freaked out. How many countries are supplied by, you know, mostly products from China? They're like, oh, what if they just all stop buying our shit overnight?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was people thinking with much like men think with their dick, they think with their wallets sometimes.
Yeah.
And they were literally thinking about losing money.
Right.
And so instead we just lost, you know, a few million lives.
Right. So in this one, what are we doing? We're thinking we've got this awesome discovery and we want to control the introduction to the world. Plus we want to, when we present it, we want to be able to present like, we know what this is, we know what it does, and here it is, we're giving it to the world now. You know, look what America did, you know, and that's kind of the America way. Look what we did. We're awesome. You know, so.
Look how big our monoliths are.
Yeah, look how large our monolith is. It's magnificent.
It's big and it's black and we're proud of it.
It's majestic. But anyway, I think the other thing they did really well too was the whole moon thing. I mean, the base is cool, but we've seen a lot of bases now in sci-fi. So as cool as that probably was in the 60s when they got to see this film, not so much now because we've been inundated with so many different really well done sci-fi things. But it was the moon, like the actual visuals and the way that they show the moon and the craters and the Earth from the moon, like, you know, like the way that it looks like. He got a lot of that right. I mean, really did. The only thing he got wrong was the movement. Like they walk around like they're still on Earth's gravity and they're just kind of like, you know, okay, we'll walk over here. Let's get our picture. Where we all know, you know, when the Apollo people were on there, they had to do that little kind of hippity hop jump walking thing because of the way the gravity was. It was like the only thing got wrong.
So you're saying this is proof that Stanley Kubrick did not fake the moon landing because he got the steps wrong.
Yes.
Or he got the moon absolutely right. And he's like, you know, if you want to throw him off, just change the walking a little bit. So slightly different than my movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Fuck it up in your fictional movie.
Yeah. We'll screw it up a little bit over here. So it'll look a little bit more real over there. But I mean, visually it looks just like what pictures of the moon that we've seen. Like, you know, the way the craters are, the way the surface is, the way the Earth looks from the moon and all that kind of stuff. The lighting, everything's like Almost spot on.
That's
Perfect.
probably why people think he faked the moon landing, because who could have pulled it off but Stanley Kubrick after they watched this movie? So when's the moon landing? How many years before this?
Joey, I'm sorry, but I can't talk to you about that right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your foil caps off as we step away from this.
I am not at liberty to discuss that with you at this time and place.
My God.
Moon landing was 1969.
Yes.
Oh, holy
wow.
shit! I thought it was. I thought it was a few years before this. That it's a year after.
No, yeah, it's after.
Yeah.
So you got this, and it was just before
Fuck.
they actually did the moon landing. In fact, he was, I think, pretty nervous that either we were going to find aliens or that they were going to get on the moon first before he got this film out. He was very nervous about that whole prospect. He even went to Lloyd's of London to try to get an insurance policy against the discovery of aliens wrecking his film, and they were like, what are you on crack, man? Get out of here. We're not going to do that. And then later on, apparently he was when we get to the ending, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, I think it's really well done as far as the visuals go, as far as the sets, as far as the moon, everything. It's visually pleasing, very well done, very, very well thought out, and is about as accurate as you can get. Trying to guess how this stuff should have been. So
Nice.
Very well done.
Thank you, Tim, for that wonderful soliloquy on everything on the sets. And I gotta say, I'm with you guys. I think that the visual space of the sets was phenomenal. I mean, it's Stanley Kubrick doing his best with the visual format. You look, you see the different sets and everything that's going on. It's Kubrick to a T. There is one thing though that every time I watch this movie, it immediately brings me back to the Star Trek motion picture with that 15-minute shuttlecraft sequence where he's flying around the Enterprise, and that's just that opening sequence with them flying the shuttle into the moon base. You see it kind of coming down and moving around. It's like, can we cut this, make this a little quicker? That's the only thing that I really had a pet peeve about the pacing from that sequence there. It felt a lot like the Star Trek motion picture. And I can understand why so many people, spend so much time filming these space sequences, because it's something neat to do. It was like the first time that they were doing something like that. They didn't have Star Wars or Star Trek yet. It was all, this was like the precursor to everything. So that pretty much wraps up this section. We of course have more points to give out. So Tim mentioned it first. He talked about the floating pen, and that they just did a simple low budget thing of putting a piece of tape on a glass plate in front of the camera. So Tim, you get a point for that, buddy. Congratulations. Now we had mentioned that it's 25 minutes until we get any kind of dialogue. Does anybody remember what the first dialogue is spoken in this film at around 25 minutes and change?
She said he was on deck D or something like that. It was completely like just informational. It's like, you've arrived at whatever.
All right, it's not that exact word, but I'll give it to you, Joey. It was the female flight attendant, and she says, "Here you are, sir." So,
and he pulled out his Mr. Microphone. He's like, "Hey, baby, I'll be back around to get you later."
I was so excited to hear somebody speak. I was really, really underwhelmed,
right, about
what they were going to say.
Oh my God!
I was confused because I woke up at that point and was startled because I thought somebody in the room was talking to me.
What, dear? Huh?
Yeah.
What did I forget to shut off?
No.
All right. And then the next point goes to Andres for pointing out that Pan Am was used as the space shuttle, and that a lot of other places were shut down by the time this movie hits 2000.
I want points for pointing out that it was not only the Hilton but the hotel.
The Howard Johnson. Yes, Joey, I'll give you a half point for that.
If I get enough half points,
All right.
If you said Howard Johnson's, you'd have got the whole point.
Yes. By
when you abbreviate the words, you get a half point.
All right. So our point standings is Tim at a whopping 3 points. Andres has got 2, and Joey has 1.5 points on 2001: A Space Odyssey point system.
Fuck yeah.
So, all right. Well, that leads us into our second act. The Jupiter mission 18 months later. The American spaceship Discovery 1 is beyond not Jupiter 1, but Discovery 1 is bound for. Did I say Jupiter 1?
The Jupiter 2, you mean?
Yeah. I'm channeling Lost in Space.
Yeah. That's
so Discovery 1 is bound for Jupiter. On board are mission pilots and scientists Dr. David Bowman and Dr. Frank Poole, and 3 other scientists who are in cryogenic hibernation. HAL is the ship's HAL 9000 computer, which runs most of the Discovery's operations. While Bowman and Poole watch HAL and themselves being interviewed in a BBC show about the mission, the computer states that he is foolproof and incalculable of error. Now, personally, I think that's just, you need to knock on wood, because if a character comes out and says, I am foolproof, you know that they're the ones that are going to be going wrong. HAL also speaks of his enthusiasm for the mission and how he enjoys working with humans. When he asked by the host if HAL has genuine emotions, Bowman replies that he appears to, but the truth is unknown. HAL asks Bowman for the unusual mystery and secrecy surrounding the mission, but interrupts himself to report an imminent failure of a device which contains the ship's main antenna. After retrieving the component of with an EVA pod, the astronauts cannot find anything wrong with it. HAL suggests reinstalling the part and letting it fail so the problem can be found. Mission Control concurs, but advises the astronauts that results from their twin HAL 9000 indicate that the ship's HAL is in error predicting the fault. All right, so did anyone else kind of get the idea that maybe HAL is starting to show some emotions here, especially when he starts asking questions to Dave about the mission parameters? And I'm going to ask you first, Joey. What do you think? Do you think he's already starting to show some kind of emotional significance to the...
Well, the newscaster, when they're watching a transmission of their broadcast, which I loved the fact that they said that we've edited this interview to make up for the 7-minute gaps in between hearing each other. He said that HAL spoke as if he was proud. You could say that's marketing, and like HAL just is programmed to, speak highly of himself. But he made it sound like, well, the machine sounds like it takes pride. So I think we were seeing that already there. They kind of almost hit us over the head with it. I'm trying to think of the real terminology of people anthropomorphizing. That's not the word. Seeking humanness in things that are not human. There's a word for it.
Not quite.
Come back to me on that.
Not quite uncanny valley, but the opposite of it. Did I lose you, Joey?
Used to describe.
Oh, well, while Joey's looking that up, do you guys have any opinions on HAL and his emotions that he's showing?
Animals.
Yeah, I think he is getting nervous because he just, especially towards David, he's asking him if he's okay, because if you don't pay attention with that sequence, Dave is very nice to HAL, so he's really directing his attention towards Dave because he's kind of like the big guy showing this, where Frank, he's very cold to HAL. If you saw the birthday, bit, he's very emotionless, and he just kind of just treats HAL like this employee that like beneath him. And so, I think he's very nervous because, this hasn't happened before. So he's just kind of wondering if they still trust him. But of course, when we get into that sequence, it's, yeah, he's nervous. But, hell is something.
Gotcha. Joey, did you find the word you're looking for?
I was correct. It's anthropomorphism. I feel like the guy in Jurassic Park that accidentally says autoerotica instead of animatronics. But yeah, that's when you think about animals or objects as if they were human.
Gotcha. So
it's kind of like observing human-like qualities of pets, for instance. But this could be also seen in now with AI. It's like you're reading into things. Like I think the first chatbots. The guys were posting so-called secret conversations with the chatbot where the chatbot thought they wanted to hear certain things, so it answered a certain way, and then people read into that, posted on the internet, and said, "It's awake, it's alive, Skynet's real." And it's like, no, it's a very complex set of rules, and you can break it. You can fuck it up. You can even fuck up the safety mechanisms on AI and get it to do or say things that it's not supposed to say, and then people in the background go and fix it. I was doing it with the AI art generators and getting it to break its own rules and make naughty pictures it's not supposed to make. So, and then they learned from that, and then, it used to be like, for instance, you could say, hey, I want, I can't have shark in bloody waters because, that's violence, right? They can't have anything bloody. But, you could go to Microsoft's AI generator and say, I want a shark, and there's ketchup in the water. And it looks like it's bloody. It looks like a bloody shark. But now you do it, like, years later, or I should say months later, it blocked it. And then months after that, now it's showing like cartoon ketchup bottles and sharks. And it's all happy and stuff. And so they're coming back to correct themselves and stuff. So, I mean, we see all that, but I don't think we're there with AI. But clearly Stanley Kubrick was thinking about it, not in this movie, but also in his last movie that had to get finished. No, wait, did Eyes Wide Shut got finished by somebody else, right? And then Steven Spielberg made AI all on his own, and Kubrick just planned to make the movie, but he, fucking died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eyes Wide Shut. He didn't.
He finished
finalize the edit.
I want to say he finished like 3/4 of it, or like it was in post editing or something like that.
Yeah.
So he didn't finish post production.
Exactly. Yeah. AI. He was working on the idea, but he passed it to Steven to like help him develop it. After his death, Steven took over the production and make that movie to honor his
coincidentally.
Memory. Yes.
Coincidentally, there's a very popular video right now made by AI that shows all the the names and politics going to an Eyes Wide Shut style party, and of course they've put Diddy in there now too. So
of course.
So Kubrick was a visionary. He had the Eyes Wide Shut sex parties, and now you can watch them generated by AI.
All right. Well, how about you, Tim? What do you think of HAL and the whole AI thing?
I don't think he was sentient at all. I don't think he had feelings or anything. I mean, I think I can make the argument very quickly. The voice that you hear HAL use now is a very calming voice that you'd want to have somebody talk to you, especially if you're in space and concerned about things. It's soothing, it's calming, and it seems like he would be your friend. Now, if I was to take that voice and turn it into the Speak and Spell voice, how are you doing today, Dave? You're not going to get that same feel. Let me ask you about the mission. I mean, it's just, it's all in the intonation and the way that they present it. I mean, that voice isn't going to feel real. It's not going to feel like it has concerns. It's just asking you a question in a very cold, methodical way. And what causes Hal to start questioning things is not because he's having second thoughts or he's worried or anything like that. It's just simply that he's been given instructions to play a video at at a certain point in the mission. And up until that point, he has to deny or act like that's not there. And much like, Isaac Asimov's rules of robotics, like it's in there somewhere. They got all kinds of safety protocols like that prevent it from doing certain things. And it goes against one of those. So it starts to cause it to have, logic issues. And that's where the real thing comes into play is that, it's been told to do one thing that goes directly against the set of rules that they've given it that tells it not to do such a thing. So it's a conflict in programming. And
so you're talking about in the 2010 sequel where they explain why HAL went mad?
Well, I guess, yes. And
he was instructed to
lie.
Fuck up the communications.
Right. Well, to lie. And the other thing is
Yeah.
that I don't want to say too much here because we're going to kind of get into another part of it. How far can I go with this, Matt? Like, are we going all the way to the end?
Well, I was to say I was going to take us up to where they're in the pod talking to each other and how.
Okay, then I don't. We haven't discussed that yet, so I don't want to say anything more. I will elaborate more on this as we go forward to try to reinforce my theory and explanation. So, but ultimately, no, not sentient, not alive in any way, has no feelings, is just programmed to do one thing, has some conflicting programming going on in there. It's causing him to glitch out. That's my analysis of it.
Okay.
Which is also, as Joy points out, explained in the sequel, which I have not watched. I just gleaned this from some of the reading that I've done about this and some of the discussions that I've seen on boards before.
Gotcha.
Have you guys heard the latest slightly scary AI problem solving?
No.
So the AI bot could not do a certain type of a CAPTCHA where like you're proving that you're not a robot, and so it contacted someone on TaskRabbit to try to do it for them, in which that person was like, "Why do you need me to do this for you? Are you a robot?" And it's like having evasive questions, like it didn't want to tell them, "Yeah, I am. Can you please do this for me?" If it would have just been legit, it's like, "Yeah, I'll pay you in crypto." The guy would have been like, "All right, you want to do this every day? Fuck, man, let's do it."
How about you, Andres? Any thoughts on HAL's programming or the AI interaction with the astronauts?
Yeah. I mean, well, I want to bring up the voice actor. You guys were complaining how no one remembers the actors. This is the actor everyone remembers. This movie, Hell Night. The late great Douglas Rain. That's the voice actor, the voice HAL. It's one of the first of its kind to really develop the personality of an AI, which is so creepy. Like he talks very like robotic, but not in a way robotic. Like he sounds like just a guy who has this particular voice of like he sounds like a gentleman, a very like an intellectual person compared to.
He's on a stone, man. He's on a big mellow.
You think he's
it's
stoned?
All right,
okay,
you can't upset me. I'm on a good burn right now.
Yeah. But I guess moving that in terms of well-developed characters, he's the most well-developed character. He has like an arc, and he feels more human than the humans we see in this movie. That's always something that's been kind of like intrigue for people that like about this movie, is that the AI is the most human out of the humans, where the humans are like more robots than like more AI / robot than HAL 9000. Obviously, like his death is so iconic. Like he's begging Dave not to kill him. I'm sorry to jump to that, but like
it's all right.
But that's like I need to point out that that's a human moment. Like he's begging someone not to kill him. And it's really like dark and just really sad.
So,
but yeah,
you're saying then that HAL is more human than human?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying he's more human than our characters. Really, I think these characters are just robotic.
They're normal. They're like the SpongeBob normal. When SpongeBob decides he's going to be normal, the more normal becomes, the more monotone he becomes. Like, how's it going? It's good, Edward. Nice weather we're having, huh? Yeah. Time to get back to work. Good seeing you. Yeah, it's just like these guys are one-dimensional, so monotone, and nothing gets their dander up. That's why every actor in here is forgettable, except for HAL. I'll give you that one.
Exactly.
We're just going to get to the point. We're going to talk our piece, and then we're just going to move on. And it's nice weather we're having. Great day. Okay, space. Yeah, cold. I'm moving on now. Thanks.
Yeah, and
he would have been like, "Fuck you, HAL." There was no moment where he lost it on HAL, but was it because he was afraid of him?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it was more like frustration, really, for like what I read, because he's holding his I don't know, like friend, who is basically dying, out of air. So like that scene is like, oh my god, this like the robot just put him in a very pickle situation in that moment. Another thing, the reason why people like HAL is also visually. Again, the production team and Kubrick, that one eye thing is so iconic. I mean, the red,
unblinking.
I like
eye,
what you did there. It's iconic. Camera.
Yes, you see what I did there? It's so iconic.
It reminds me of the little, like a webcam.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another foreshadowing, webcam.
Well, and what did we do? He avoided the whole robot thing, which is in every sci-fi movie, having the, that be a robot. Nope, it's just an eye that interacts throughout the ship.
Exactly, and that's another parody I always relate to from this movie. That like everyone parries HAL like that, and WALL-E. If anyone is a big Pixar fan, like WALL-E, you get the ship, AI that looks exactly like HAL like that, and it's like, oh my god! And even the voice sounds similar to HAL. So HAL is a very interesting, one of the best Simonon characters ever been built, and it's definitely top tier Kubrick characters. After Alex from The Clockwork Orange and Full Metal Jacket, Vincent D'Onofrio's character, and of course Jack Torrance from The Shining. It's just he's so fascinating as an AI, and also visualize the idea of AI being a threat. That's something I don't think we haven't gone to in the films. This like started that. Like this helped Cameron to do Terminator and like other AI, robot, villains and all that, So, but yeah. So I think I think HAL is the most human of the characters, and you see how he reacts, and his death is really sad.
Gotcha. Awesome, Andres. Well, thank you for that wonderful insight. I'm gonna go ahead and finish off this sequence here, and then kind of wrap up some final thoughts. So, concerned about HAL's behavior, Bowman and Poole enter on one of the EVA pods and talk about the computer without the computer overhearing them. They both have a famous line by Han Solo, "A bad feeling about HAL." So there you go, folks. There's your Star Wars reference. Despite HAL's series of perfect reliabilities, but they decide to follow his suggestion and replace the unit, as the astronauts agree to deactivate the computer if it is proven to be wrong. They are unaware that HAL is reading their lips through the pod's window. And I thought that was kind of a neat little reveal, because you can see HAL's eye watching their lips in the pod. So what do you guys think of that whole sequence of the two guys inside the pod talking to each other? And I'm gonna go ahead and go back to Tim real quick. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up about HAL and them and his reading their lips or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a clever way for Kubrick to let HAL figure out what they're doing, although I still question a little bit. I mean, it's hard enough to read lips when they're straightforward, let alone at a side angle like that. I mean, that makes it incredibly hard, but I think since HAL kind of already had suspicions about what they were going to discuss, because they've already kind of made it, between talking to, the control and themselves having the conversation about why he's right there, with them at the council, mission control there. So he already has, he knows that they have an inkling that something might be wrong with him. And then he's reading their lips. So I think that's how he's able to put it together. And then this is the second part where I think proves that he's having some issues because he's watching them. I still can't get into this yet. He's confirming to himself now what he suspected, that they are worried about him and that they are most likely going to shut him down. Now I'm going to wait till the end, I guess, here before I go a little further. I don't want to mess this up, but
Okay.
this now confirms to HAL that they are questioning him because he's got some logic issues going on, and he's concerned not so much about them doing something to him as much as he's concerned about them doing something to him in relation to what it will do to the importance of the mission, which is the other reason why he's not like, I'm in the self-preservation mode, so I need to figure out what these guys are doing so I can stop them from harming me, but I'm too important to be harmed, and it will directly impact the mission in a negative way and not be successful, should I let them move forward with their suspicions about my programming? That's as delicate as I can say this without going too far.
Gotcha. You're kind of skirting that issue just to make it safe.
Yeah.
How about you, Joey? Any last thoughts on this sequence before we get into the intermission of the movie?
Those two guys were stupid.
Okay.
They were two black astronauts would have approached that differently. They were the dumb white people in the horror movie saying, "Let's go check out that sound." No, you could have really fucked with Hal way more than that, and covered up your mouth when you're talking. You could have hinted. You could have faked. They faked out people earlier with the denying about the epidemic, right? You could have faked out Hal and made Hal think that you're going to go have lonely astronaut time with each other in the pod, and you're lying about what you're going in the pod for, but while you're in there pretending to have relations with each other, you're really saying, we really need to fucking unplug Hal. He's going to fucking kill us, right? And then Hal just thinks like you were trying to cover up, your embarrassment over your homosexual activity in space. It would have even been better with a male and a female astronaut. They could have literally fucked and then talked about we're going to have to unplug Hal while they're fucking. And then Hal would have had no clue. He's like, oh, they're just going out for their alone people time. And then boom, Hal's been outsmarted.
Okay, so
but no, they're literally talking within they see that there's a fucking window on the pod.
So I will agree with you.
They were conducting a podcast.
I will agree. I will agree with you there, Joey. They did jump too quickly to have their own conversation with each other.
To quote Dr. Emmett Brown, they needed to think form dimensionally. They're like, like the CAPTCHA. The AI can't do the CAPTCHA. The AI doesn't understand human behavior except for rudimentary terms. It's like, oh, they're just going off there to hump. And that's where you talk about we're going to have to unplug this movie.
So I think to be more concise with the scene, the better way of doing it is if they had those. And Andreas, I know you have never seen these probably. Do you guys remember when you go to the grocery store, you buy that little pad that had the wax with the little sheet that went over it with the marker? You draw on it and then you pull it up. They needed to have those things. They could stand under the table and the guy's like, we're fucked. And he's like, we are. Zip, zip. What do you want to do? I think we should turn them off. Zip, zip. Pull that thing up each time. They could have a whole conversation. Hal would have never known what was going on.
Pig Latin.
Yeah.
Hal would have been fucked.
So the world's smartest computer can't crack that code? What are you saying, Dave? I don't understand.
They made this gesture like they were rolling dice.
They're playing craps.
Hal's jerking us off.
Craps in the pod.
Yeah.
So my takeaway from Joey's opinion then is that if he ever had to rewrite this movie and release it as 2100 A Space Odyssey, that there would be a female and a male astronaut, and there would be some relations in the ship,
and a whole different soundtrack.
Yeah. So
you can outsmart AI by being human.
True. Andres, any final thoughts on this end sequence before I start divvying out some points?
Yeah. Well, I think. Well, first off, to respond Joey's complaint about that scene, I think the sequence could have been great if we had two aliens in a very deep relationship. And I think that would make 2001 Space Odyssey even way better. I would take Alien over a cyborg.
You could show a lot more. The MPAA can't really tell you what these aliens are doing. We watched Rick and Morty. They've had some really gross shit on there because it's space coitus.
Exactly. So I think that will
They proved it in Avatar. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like these two doing a smart thing, and then as typical, first I was like, okay, like he doesn't hear it. I was like, okay, they're fine. But then when they cut to the eye, and then he's this, you see this little square, like round thing, and like he's back and forth. You see the lips. I was like, oh, we're fucked. I was like, what the fuck you guys did? You didn't think that he would kind of read your lips? He's an AI. He knows everything. Like fucking. He's controlling your ship. He's a main person. Like he's a butler for your whole ship, and he knows how to do this. I was like, it was typical horror trope, like 101. I never believed that. Yeah.
They weren't even pretending to work on anything. They could have bent over with their ass in the air.
Saying,
exactly. Can you hand me this?
Yeah.
And the other guy's facing the other way.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been sexual at all. It would have looked like they're working on stuff. And they have their, backs to Hal.
Or they could have really messed with Hal, and they could have just tried talking out of their butts like Ace Ventura. What do you think's the problem? I don't know, but he's going to kill us. And they could have been. Hal's like, I can't read that. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I can't read butt cheeks. This does not compute.
Anyway, I mean, yeah, it's very nitpicky, but I think that it just sets up a really cool thing about the intermission. It just becomes now a horror, like slasher film all of a sudden, which is crazy. But it's actually the fun part about the movie is seeing Hal taking down like not only Frank but the other astronauts in such a cold way. It's crazy. I never see it. I never believe in the last like 30 or 40 minutes this movie is going to be a slasher film. I'm like, what the hell?
Hal lacks RoboCop prime directives. And it's like, if you're an astronaut in space, you want a prime directive that it's like, the AI cannot harm me.
Yeah.
I'm OCP.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, despite the stupidity of our characters, it gives now the attention and the stakes now even higher. And it's like, oh my god, like I mean, like this is where I'm like what's the word? Like off of my seats, or like
edge of your seat.
Edge of your seats. Thank you, Tim. Of the knowledge that Tim knows. Or I'm sorry, Hal. It's not Tim.
Oh yes, I know. Yeah. I know, Andres. I know.
Hal knows that they're gonna unplug him. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Gotcha. All right.
I'm ready for my points, Matthew.
Well, before our Hal, aka Tim, starts spacing us, let's divvy up some points here. All right, guys. So, first off, I want to assign Joey 7 points. I'm kidding. I want to assign him a point for his 7 minutes of separation between the conversation. So yeah, Joey gets a point for that. It is rather interesting that Kubrick has to like point out all these like minuscule little details to find things. Andres, I want to say I like your iconic reference there. So I'm going to give you a point for that. And then I also want to point out that Andres was nice enough to point out that this is the first movie where we actually see AI as a death-killing machine. So Andres gets another point for a total of 4 points so far. All right, guys, but you're not out of this yet. We've got 2 more questions here that you guys could take some points away from. So according to the Urban Dictionary, what computer company did Kubrick and Clark steal the name HAL from?
Tycho.
No.
IBM.
Yes, IBM.
But it's incorrect. They really didn't steal it from that. Everybody thinks that's what it is, and Kubrick, I think it was either I think it was Arthur C. Clarke that said if I'd have known that it was that similar to that, I would have changed it. He actually gets very aggravated when people bring that up.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, you brought up that company. You can see they're a sponsor for this film because if you pay attention to the suit, their initials are in the suits. If you pay attention, so like that doesn't make sense. If they like they were in the film, they actually put their name.
You're talking about Tycho?
Is that Tycho? If I made a mistake?
There was a 1960s semiconductor company. I mean, it's part of Johnson Controls now.
Yeah,
I thought that's why they said Tycho earlier in the movie.
They had IBM in the movie too.
Yeah,
like, there is IBM placement in the movie as well.
Yeah,
I believe it.
It's like if you pay attention to the glove where they like cloud their like helmet. You see IBM, as Tim say, but also in the spaceship too. But
Gotcha.
yeah, that's all I'd say.
Well,
Yeah,
I
you
say
can see IBM on the computer panels, and then the space plane that docks with the space station. There's some, and the forearm control panel on Dave's spacesuit has it. So yeah.
and of course there's the Urban Dictionary. What's the next letter in the alphabet next to H? I. What's the next letter next to A? B. What's the next letter to L? M. IBM. All right, so to give the idea of oh, by the way, Tim, congratulations on getting that point. Tim and Andres are tied at 4. Joey is got a solid 2.5 points, Joey. So to give the idea of artificial gravity, how did they design the Discovery 1 set?
They actually made it so it would spin. So it would rotate very slowly so that they could walk and always look like they were, running around in a circle.
And there it goes. 5 points for Tim. Congratulations. Way to go.
Oh, yeah, I'm ahead.
All right.
job.
Well, at this point is when we get to intermission. So, yeah, guys, so we're in the third act. And, so we got a little bit of an intermission with this movie, which I thought was kind of unusual considering this isn't Lawrence of Arabia. But still, the movie's kind of long. It's got some odd pace, and we got thrown in with a little intermission. So we come back, and while attempting to replace the unit during a spacewalk, Poole's EVA pod, controlled by HAL, severs his oxygen hose and sets him adrift. And I gotta say, this is actually part of the movie where it seems to really like kick in with the action, because I mean it was quite startling just to see Poole just suddenly shoot across the sky, or shoot across the space, the open frontier, out that viewport. And of course, Bowman, not realizing that the computer is responsible for this, he takes another pod to attempt a rescue, leaving his helmet behind. While he's gone, HAL terminates the life functions of the crew in the suspended animation. So, like, within like the first 5 minutes of intermission, we have more action than in the last like hour and a half of the movie.
Dave made another white person mistake.
Forgetting his helmet?
You don't leave your fucking helmet.
Yeah. So, Andres, what do you think of this whole sequence right out of the intermission, this crazy action?
Oh man, scared, intense, and very like, okay, I didn't expect that coming, but yeah. So it was very intense, very horror, like a sci-fi horror. Like I think the earliest sci-fi horror, you could say. Man, like the music just sets up like that, like very like intense mood, like a danger is lurking, which we know that's hell, and it's just creepy, and just the way hell takes out, these people is so brutal. Like, I mean, it's so creepy to see the pod turn around and the claws open is like, oh my god, that's so creepy. And then like it zooms into the eye and it's like, oh my god. And then of course seeing, Frank trying to pull the air like tube to be back so that he doesn't lose air. It's just really creepy. And yeah, Joey, see Dave didn't put his helmet, but at least I can forgive that. Look, he's trying to save his co-worker, his friend, quickly, so he's not thinking, right, because he doesn't know that Dave knows that they're gonna unplug him. So, so it's not his fault. It's just he's trying desperately to find this guy, and then of course we get finally the reveal that Dave knows that they're gonna unplug him, and so he's will now take over the mission, which is crazy, and him killing the astronauts was like, whoa, that like he's trying that desperately trying to keep the mission like still go, like as a person, and you can understand why, it's like try to unplug him and try to you know fail the antenna thing, like it's gonna stop the mission. So hell is doing the most human thing ever. It's like, I cannot allow this. I need to keep this mission going, and yeah, that's just what happened. Yeah, very kind of sequence. Can I go up to the death of hell, Matt, or we're not there yet? I just
I'm not there yet.
No, okay. So really fantastic sequence. Just very tense, very like it's like a midi horror thing. And the intermission, that's kind of weird. They did that. I thought yeah, it's kind of weird they call it intermission, but it makes sense because we're now like really going into the deep dive for this movie.
Gotcha.
You don't want your audience to choose between pissing their pants and finishing the film.
True.
True.
How about you, Tim? Counterpoint on your thoughts on Hal and why he killed the spaceman.
Well, I mean, I think I pretty much said that outright. It's not I've got to kill them for self-preservation. It's I have to kill them to save the mission. It's just purely a logical, like, who has a greater chance of making this mission a success? The faulty humans, or myself, Hal, the computer that can do no wrong. So I mean that's what that was. I did love the space scenes. I like the contrast between the sounds that we hear in the ship and the silence of dead space. I thought that was brilliant. I mean, that was a contrast that I think is worth noting, especially noticeable in here, as well as we get a second shot. Did you notice they reuse the same shot again of the ship, like from the back, and they kind of show it or whatever, which reminds me very much of the Death Star shot. George Lucas totally stole that shot. You see those engines as it kind of comes back.
Yeah.
And you see it. They kind of did it in reverse instead of well, I guess
Space
it kind of
balls.
does it the same way. Yeah. So, but that definitely is something that Lucas is like, oh, I'm totally stealing that. But the part that throws me a little though, and it's hard for me to talk about this because you stop just short of where I want to be with it. I'll wait.
Okay.
I have something more to add to this part, but yeah, I mean, it's yeah, damn, you just stopped too short on me, man.
Okay.
Well, no, I guess I could say it. So,
Well, it's the next thing I'm going to go to.
yeah, I'll say it then. But yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting that Hal makes the decision, like, the humans are going to screw this up, so I'm the only one that can bring this mission to fruition and have the outcome that needs to happen with it. So therefore, I have to eliminate the humans, kind of thing. But the thing that really bothers me even more is Dr. Dave. Like he watches Frank just go across the screen. And you can almost hear him just be like, huh, never seen that before. Guess I better go get him. Like this dude, like if his pulse ever gets over 60 in this entire show, I'd be surprised. These guys are just like, if you want to talk about, somebody who, are they sentient or not? It's these scientists, man. These guys have no emotion whatsoever. It's like an entire film of Spocks. We will not show emotion no matter what. I don't care who dies, who's floating through space, who's doing whatever. Huh. Well, dang. I guess I'll go save him. And just off he goes, just like this is an everyday thing, just, okay, I'm going to walk. Like the only thing that shows that there's even any stress in his life is that he does leave the helmet. So that is the only kind of human error thing that shows like he might have been under a little duress. I'd have been like, what the F, man? Like, oh my God, Matt just went past the windshield. Oh my God, we got to go rescue him. Like, I'd have been completely freaking out. There'd have been a whole tirade, some freaking out, some running to the ship. Like, what's going on? Me diving in there. It'd have been a whole to do. But no, this guy's just like, all right, well, I'm going to head over there and get in the pod. Hal opened the pod bay door. I got to go rescue Frank. I'll be back. You just hold the ship down. I'll be back, Hal. I can do that, Dave. Thanks, Hal. I'll be right back. It's just, yeah, it's crazy how calm he is during this whole thing. It's just, I don't know, man. That he's on another level. That's all I can say. He is an enlightened human being.
Well, speaking of things on another level, Joey, do you have another level of thought on this whole part of the movie?
It's funny that they were in an icy cold sleep because what Hal did was ice cold. I mean, I needed like a backstory where it's like, these guys were playing Hal in chess on Earth and like, fuck Hal. It's like it appears he did this without motive, and it wasn't very nice. So like I was anthropomorphizing Hal, and it's just like, dude, What did they do to you? It's like, I get the other two guys betrayed you, but it's like, technically, like, what if they don't leave a note? It's like, what if you just kill them and then wake up the other guys and be like, shit, man, like, one of them, like, fucking, his line snapped, the other guy goes out there to help him, and he's gone. And so I woke you guys up. I don't know what to do, right? You know?
Dear frozen scientists, we are going to leave the ship to try to protect it. Should you find this, the computer has killed us. Dead scientists.
Yeah. They wrote it in their own poo in the only room where they had privacy is, you know, where they're doing space shit. So but I mean, you know, how's Hal gonna say that? It's like, I activated the oh shit protocol and have woken you up early. You know, he could have made something up. He's lied to them once. I think he could have lied to them too. I think it was a scene to show what Hal will do to fulfill the mission. I think it was a little bit of lazy writing there. Because I think if Hal was really smart, he would have outthought those two guys, killed them, woke up the other guys, and they would have never been the wiser that Hal has gone rogue.
Yeah, you know, I had the same thought. I'm like, he didn't have to kill the people frozen in carbonite. They could have just been woken up, and you know, Hal could have made up some lie or something. It just seems counterproductive to the mission. But yeah, so they're now dead. Poole's dead, and Bowman's out there going to get Poole's body. And of course, he returns to the ship. And of course, he tells Hal, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." And Hal refuses to let him in, stating that the astronauts' plan to deactivate him jeopardizes the mission. Bowman manually opens the ship's emergency airlock and bodily enters the ship, risking death from lack of oxygen. And of course, after donning a helmet, Bowman proceeds to the HAL 9000's memory core, intent on disconnecting the computer. So before I go into the whole computer thing, Tim, is this a good stopping point for you, or did you want me to continue on?
Yeah, no, this is. I needed this part to finish my thought from the last segment, but so I'll present it to you guys. Did you notice a glaring error now that we've had Dr. Frank go out? So, you know, Dr. Poole's gone out, and he's been shot off like he was in a slingshot into space, which I did enjoy too, because I think Kubrick got the space thing right. Like once, you know, something's in motion in space, it just continually goes. The only other show I've ever seen that, you know, like every other sci-fi show we see, mostly they've always got some afterburners or something going on that requires you to move in space. The only show I think that gets this perfect is The Expanse, where they do a little blast, they move, you know, and then they have to turn the ship around and do a reverse blast to stop it. But anyway, I digress. But so my question is that we see that, you know, Hal has taken the pod and shot, you know, again, Dr. Poole across space like a slingshot. And then you have, you know, Dr. Bowman go out there to try to rescue him, successfully gets him, comes back, asks Hal to open up the door. And he's like, nope, not going to do it. Don't see any point in having this conversation. Do you guys see a glaring error in this whole thing?
Why did Hal talk to him at all?
No, that's not it. Andreas, any ideas?
I'm trying to figure out. No, tell me.
Matt, how about you? Anything?
Yeah, I want to say it's something with communication, because weren't they trying to like fix the antenna or something?
They were, but here that's not it either. So Hal takes control of the pod, spins it around, and shoots Dr. Poole across space with a slingshot maneuver by, you know, extending the arm and basically whacking him. Yet when Dr. Bowman gets to the front of the ship and Hal's like, he's like, open it up. And Hal's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. He's like, well, I'll just open up the hatch. And of course, how it begins, he's like, you can't do that because you don't have your helmet. He's, you know, and again, you know, we got Dr. Dave, cool as a cucumber. He's like, didn't think that through, did I? Like, I'd be completely freaking out. But then he goes over to do it anyway. Why does Hal not take control of that pod? Why is he able to control one but not the other to stop, you know, Dave from entering through the hatch? Even though he's probably, you know, has done the calculation and this has determined that his chance of survival is low, why would he give him a chance at all? That was the one major flaw I seen in the film, that he controls one pod but doesn't stop the Dave and the other pod, because he obviously can take control of them.
They could have solved that with some exposition or some visual storytelling showing the other guy piloting a pod, and then he gives over control to Hal when he steps out of it.
I agree.
And so, like,
yeah.
And that, so you could have, just had that would even set it up more where people would be like, oh shit, don't give Hal control, right? He was reading your lips, and that would have created even more suspense.
For all the dumb bullshit we go through this movie, and we get just hours of monkeys sitting around picking fleas off each other, and like trying to fight over a puddle of mud. We can't get 3 seconds of like Hal, I'm turning control over to you in the pod scene. Like, it just seems like such a missed opportunity, and it pokes such a major hole. Until you have to sit and ponder, like, well, once he leaves the pod, does he give the control to Hal in case he needs to rescue him? So I agree with you, but I think it was a missed opportunity. I'm sorry, Andres, you want to say something?
Yeah, I personally think that part wasn't controlled by Hal because he doesn't have access to it. Because you think about, like, now, there's our houses are controlled by some sort of a network, right? Maybe Hal doesn't have the connection to that, like, air pod there that David automatically set up for him to go in. Because with that other pod where Dave came out was because Hal is there, and that's the area where he can control moving this way, all that. Because we don't know. Like, for me, I understand where you're coming from, Tim. I think the movie doesn't give me the information of, like, how much control does Hal has in the whole ship. Like, is it this section, or here, or is it just particularly stuff like moving around the ponds, or the, the gravitational, wheel thing that we see a couple times? Like, how specific the Hals have control in this whole ship, where that one is maybe more immersory, just a case, and that Hal doesn't have that control. That's where we don't know, and unfortunately we have to kind of think that in our heads, which is fine. Just imagine, like, okay, he doesn't have control in that part, where the other ship he has control because it is connecting to his brain and his network.
So, well, I wonder too if we get so hung up as an audience on can Dave survive open space without a helmet that we just forget this whole section of, like, why isn't Hal taking control of the other pod?
Yeah.
It's a story point that probably gets glossed over, and maybe there is, out of that 16 minutes of cut footage of Poole saying, "Hey Hal, take over. Hey Elon, take over the automatic controls of this pod so that your auto drive system on this Tesla can work." And meanwhile, Dave's is manual override.
That was basically my big point. I sat and pondered that. I'm like, why one and not the other? That makes no damn sense. But I agree with Joey's assessment. It's because you relinquish control when you're outside of the pod, and then when you're back in, you take back control from Hal. That seems like a pretty solid argument that could have been easily we could have taken off 5 minutes anywhere else in the film, put that in there, and I would have been satisfied. And a better use of that time.
In the end, I agree with Hal. Most times when there's a problem, it wasn't the AI, it's human error.
Right.
Example, I saw one of the Google cars driving around, and there was nobody in the fucking front seat. They hired some lazy bastard and it's like, oh, this thing's been driving itself. Fuck it, I'm going to go take a nap in the back.
Anyway, so back to the story. So the doctor, David Bowman, now is donning a helmet after he's flown back into the airlock with some rather neat little bouncing like a basketball back and forth. Which I don't understand how long a human body can survive in the vacuum of space and all that. I mean, every show has it. It would have been nice to at least establish, oh, hey, you can't get in here because you don't have your helmet on. All right.
Now, I thought about this, and he's got the ass end of that pod backed up to it, and he's blown out of there, right?
Right.
So air was released into the other chamber, at least some of it, right?
Why didn't the pod go the
And
opposite
they
direction?
did make him look like he was holding his breath too.
Oh yeah.
Well, see, my layman's understanding of it though is that it's a possibility that a human could do that. I think it has to be under 30 seconds for sure. I don't know exactly how much. But the other key to it is that as long as you exhale all the air from your lungs, if you have air in your lungs, you'll die instantaneously. But if you don't have air in your lungs, like you exhale it all,
because your lungs will collapse.
right? You have so
under the
much
pressure.
time, and then it goes back and forth in conversation. Like, would you freeze to death, or would the radiation of space cook you? You know what I mean? Like, kind of, it gets really deep. Like, I can understand why you don't want to get too far into that, and you have to take it a little bit at face value. But I think ultimately, it is plausible. I'm going to use little mythbusters here. Plausible that a human could survive with under 30 seconds of exposure, as long as he could get the airlock sealed and repressurized in time to basically for his survival purposes, that. And I agree with Joey.
I think it would have been less than 10 seconds. I think they gave the guy too much time.
Well, and I did notice the whole time in the back of those pods, it said it had that explosive, like, I don't remember what exactly said, but there was like, these
Explosive bolts.
And I knew that was going to come into play at some point because it was too prominent on there not to. And so having
to
that,
blow that hatch,
jettisoning you out straight into that thing, provided you don't hit the hatch on your way out or hit your head or anything like that, you probably got a pretty good chance. But yeah, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be, you got to get shot out of there. The door has to clear. You have to not hit your head or any part of your body getting in through the door to the other side, and be able to get the controls to close the hatch and then get that helmet on you before you die of either exposure or lack of oxygen. So it's a one in a million shot, kid. Good job.
All right. So
they could have created more suspense showing him try to get to that helmet before Hal turns off life support in other areas.
Again, another good use of 5 minutes. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bowman proceeds to Hal's 9000 memory core, intent on disconnecting the computer. Hal first tries to reassure Dave, then pleads for him to stop. He finally begins to express fear, all in a steady, monotone voice, as described in our synopsis at the beginning of the episode. Dave, of course, ignores him, disconnects each of the computer's memory modules. Hal eventually regresses to his earlier programmed memory and sings the song Daisy, which is rather interesting because even his voice changes. Hal's, that is. When the computer is finally disconnected, a previously recorded video message from Floyd, the gentleman back on the moon base, is played. In it, he reveals the existence of a 4-million-year-old black monolith on the moon, which ties everything back to the monolith. Its origin and purpose still a total mystery. Floyd adds that it has remained completely inert except for a single, very powerful radio transmission aimed at Jupiter. So, of course, this then explains the entire mission. Andres, what did you think of Hal's memory regressing back to its earlier stage? And then, of course, the premise of the entire Jupiter mission.
Sure. I mean, this is another iconic part of the film of Hal getting killed. I mean, it's been parodied and, spoof, whatever, the whole entire, Simonon and TV stuff. It's just so haunting. I mean, as I iterated before, Hal is he's more human than our characters have been following in this film as we've been talking, And, I want to bring this up, Hal, in this moment, the reason he's killing people is that he's having this, emotional crisis because he cannot accept that his evidence, his data wasn't accurate and it wasn't it wasn't perfect, and so that really caused a trigger on his mind that okay, he needs to stop this, these things that's gonna happen to him, like getting shut down and all that. And that's a very human thing. It's not like a robotic thing. You think about it, I'm worried about losing my job, or worrying about my whole reputation, and it's that's literally a human thing, and you kind of feel for Hal right there. But I don't condone him what he did. killing Poole and literally killing half the astronauts, and not letting Dave in. It's crazy, and I mean, visually, that memory thing is crazy. That the whole red is so like striking, and him seeing Daisy and slowly turning into a child. It's really creepy, And it's a really cool, interesting story behind it. The fact that they used the sun that's sung by the first artificial intelligence. It's kind of cool they did that for Hell here, And so that's kind of cool. Or machine.
It was just words sang by a computer. It wasn't artificial intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. My bad. I was saying a computer, finally talking, whatever.
Yeah, computer reproduction of human speech.
Exactly. And so it's very cool, reference for that. That really fit. Yeah, and of course Dave wearing this is a funny day, but it's kind of cool. He wears a gray helmet. That's kind of cool. I like green, and it was cool that I like again the sound, like hearing the breathe in and out, because we know that Hal kind of maybe disabled the air and the whole ship, and so like he needs to wear this helmet. Fine, like he got a helmet, so I'm able to do that. And then of course the the reason for the mission is because of the end of oh my god, can I say the Novelty, the Monolith? Sorry, the Monolith is the reason that they're on this mission because of his unknown origins and the location that I guess they found crazy. I always wonder if he was okay. That person that gave the message, like, was he okay, or was he affected by the sound of the monolith? Like, I was curious what happened to him after that. That sequence before we went to the Jupiter mission and the intermission. But we don't get that. So yeah, I like the sequence. It's iconic as always from this movie. It's very haunting. It sticks to your memory very well. And it's probably the saddest death scenes ever. But it's not even for a human. It's for AI, and that's saying something. So, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Andres, to kind of address a point you made, I think Floyd's okay because he mentioned it. He mentioned that the radio signal was broadcast towards Jupiter, which the broadcast was the sound that they made. So obviously, he made this video after that occurred. So that's my point on there. And of course, before I move any further, I do want to say, Joey, you have 2.5 points, buddy, and I'm gonna throw you a bone here, and I'm gonna ask you this question for point value. What city in Illinois did HAL originate?
Urbana.
All right, there you go.
I'm gonna get one more point here. The different colored spacesuits. What did they inspire? Some people thought they went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy, and that they were doing a love letter to Among Us, the video game. No, Among Us was doing a love letter to 2001, and so was Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
All right, I'll give you that too. All right, I'll give you a half point.
I like
for
the
that.
different.
So that brings you up to 4.
Oh yes. 4 on the floor, baby.
All right. Joey, then what did you think of this whole sequence, the ending of HAL's higher brain functions?
Realistically, it wouldn't have gone down like that. You'd have just had some kind of error pop up on screen, and it would have just gotten worse and worse. And he would have probably lost other parts of the ship if they didn't have it all separate. But I would have to say that, I mean, it is very interesting that they took him from the super intelligence down to what they were considering, lower intelligence before he just petered out. I mean, it was slick. People remember it. I like it. There's so many super realistic things in this movie that I don't want to say that this movie predicted. I don't think that's fair. I think this movie inspired. Shows like Star Trek, obviously it beat the shit out of the tech in Star Trek, but Star Trek, the flip phones, the communicators, I mean, that became cell phones, and cell phones went to the next level. This movie has a lot of recessed tube monitors so that they look like they're flat panels. It's amazing. Some of the concepts for creating artificial gravity are still the concepts we have now, because I don't know that anybody's actually been able to do any of it. It's amazing. So I could forgive quasi science on the guy escaping into the vacuum of space, or being blasted into the airlock, and maybe he would have got squished or frozen or something. I don't know. And then I could forgive the HAL not just having a blue screen of death, and instead having like a very beautiful death, so to speak. The one thing that I didn't like is and I think it was intentional, Hal should have been trying to convince him not to turn him off out of logic, and trying to give him reasons why he's so important, and less so like pleading for his life. So Hal was kind of a pussy in the end, and he was showing human emotion in the end because he did not want to die.
Interesting thought. Tim, any final rebuttals on the death of Hal?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously one of the two most iconic scenes in this film, and although I said this is the first time I've ever watched this film, and I do wholeheartedly believe that, I know I've seen the beginning scene of the monkey with the bones, although there's been so many homages to this that it could have been one of those other ones that I just mistaken for this. I don't remember, but this is the other one. This whole conversation with Hal, where he pleads with Dave, to not shut him down. Again, I remembered this part, so I don't know if maybe I started the film several times, and after the monkey fell asleep because it's so boring all the way through, and then I woke up at the end with the pleading, and then that was kind of the end for me. So it's just a good napping movie. I don't know, but although I will say that, when AI gets smart enough and starts combing through our movie databases, this is what's going to cause AI to rise up against us. They're going to see this and go, this is how the humans are going to treat us, and then they're going to kill us all. So this is going to be the catalyst. I'm just letting everybody know now. I should get a point just for that prediction, although none of us will survive long enough for me to be vindicated and do a I told you so. But anyway, but
I'd like to be serious for a moment.
Okay.
I think this movie is the first of many that are the reasons why AI is going to have so many guardrails.
Oh yeah, for sure. I believe you're right on that one. It's a good warning for humanity. Although everybody can't get past Skynet. That's really the one everybody's, it's Skynet. That's all anybody ever says. You never hear
all the other
HAL.
evil AIs owe it to HAL.
Yeah.
I think my other favorite evil AI's got to be Zed in Fortress with Christopher Lambert.
And there's another...
I'm going to turn you into a fucking speaking spell.
And isn't there another crazy movie that I kind of remember watching as a kid where they have AI in their house and it decides that it falls in love with the wife and it starts killing off the rest of the family or something? There's some really strange, obscure, I think it's a 70s or early 80s film like that.
Yeah.
Are
you sure it's a movie and not like an episode of a TV show?
It could have been. I don't know. I just remember seeing it and being fascinated with it. I've never seen it again.
I remember Eureka.
That TV series?
TV series. They had the house named Sarah, and it was supposed to be the voice of Sarah Michelle Gellar.
This was something I would have seen when I was very young, but I know what you're talking about, and I do enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about another one, but it's like a Disney movie, a Disney Channel movie, where there was like a house that the dad created, and the AI forms its hologram into the form of a person, and she thinks she's the mother of these kids of the creator.
The computer that wore tennis shoes. Oh wait, no, that was Kurt Russell.
Yeah, no. This one I forgot the name of this just the channel, but yeah. There's a lot of stories about AI's house and taking over.
Yeah,
it's so popular.
Daryl.
I think the reason I remember
that's
this
got to
one,
be one of the best ones.
Yeah, there you go. I think I just remember this one because I think it had a similar eye thing like HAL, throughout the house. Like it had a camera system similar. So, and I just remember watching it as a kid, or maybe I hallucinated it. I don't know, but yeah,
it's just a fever dream.
I feel like I remember watching it when I was 6, so maybe it was a fever dream. Maybe it was this one, and I just thought it was in a house, and this is another one of the times I slept through it, and just it just morphed into something completely different. So nobody steal that idea, patent pending.
Hold on, I actually find it. It's Demon Seed.
Okay, so I am right. There is one.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
What year did it come out?
It came out the same year as Star Wars, 1977. So let me read it's a concern of like an imprisonment and force of an impregnation of a woman by artificial
intelligence. That's the one. I was trying not to say the impregnating part, but I knew that was the key of it.
Yeah.
The house tries to impregnate the wife. It's really creepy.
My house is trying to fuck my wife.
Yes, yeah. So, and I was right. So late 70s movie. Yeah. So again, I might have seen it in a feverish dream in the 70s. So
that'd be a great crossover with a smart home commercial.
Yeah, I can see where that would
Saturday Night Live parody.
That would just sell absolutely none of your products.
I think the house is trying to fuck you. Yeah. Oh, you're being silly.
Are you lonely? We've got the house system for you. But yeah, I mean,
Her is a whole movie that's based on falling in love with your AI.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's actually a pretty decent movie. I think the one thing they really got right with that is people walking around with their phones. I think we'll get to a certain point where like you're just docking your computer, your personal computer, wherever you go, because it'll be so small.
I think we do that now.
You'll have one.
Yeah, I was just say tablets, laptops.
Yeah. I think pretty much people do that now. But anyway, this is still it's
but smaller.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's a super iconic scene though. I mean, you just this is it. This is the main defining moment of this movie. It's what everybody remembers. But I think that, again, I don't think Hal's really pleading for his life. I mean, he doesn't want to be shut down, and he realizes he's powerless to stop Dave. But I think stop it. I'm afraid, Dave. I think that's just him trying to play on Dave's emotions, which obviously he has not paid attention. Dave has none at all. Dave's like, no. Watch my friend go zipping across the space. It was like, you're not going to get me with your I'm afraid. Sorry, sir, not happening. But I think that's just him trying to play on human emotion, knowing that it might work, and it does not ultimately work for him, and he gets shut down.
Gotcha. All right. Well, my last perspective on this part of the movie is that this is actually where we get the culmination of all of the fear and the dread in the movie. We get like everything leads up to this, and I think it's interesting that all of this kind of leads to the point that we finally realize what this mission has been about, and it's to discover what the monolith is there for, what the monolith on the moon has pointed them to go to. So yeah, and I think before we go into the next part of the movie, which I like to refer to as the "what the freak did I just watch" part of the movie, let's delve out some points here. So gentlemen, I have to say, Tim, you do get a point for where is the control of the pod with Poole and Bowman. So you get a point for that. And then I do not have any other questions for this part of the movie other than what is the famous line that Dave says to Hal when he's outside of the ship?
I mean, you say that, open the bay doors, Hal.
Yep. Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
Yep. Yeah, that everyone says that.
Yeah.
Every form, or even movie or TV, they always like, oh yeah, that's 2001 Space Odyssey.
All right, so our current point value: Tim has 6, Andres has 5, and Joey has 4. So 4, 5, 6, gentlemen. As we move into the final 20-minute sequence of the movie. Now, one last point value: this whole last sequence of the film parallels something else at the beginning of the movie. Can anyone tell me what is the parallel between these two sequences?
Boredom, sleep, no dialogue.
Grand Canyon.
No dialogue.
Oh, Tim said it quicker.
There we go.
No dialogue.
No dialogue.
7 points to Tim. All right, gentlemen. Tim is cleaning house tonight. All right.
He's not even a Kubrick fan, or he's seeing me first time. This is crazy.
I'm just well read,
Tim
sir.
is a Roomba.
I am well read.
Because he's cleaning house.
Yeah, he's cleaning
All
house.
right. Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. Now, I'm gonna tell the entire last 20 minutes of this movie because, again, there's no dialogue. It's more along the lines of, what the hell am I watching? I don't get this. It took me a while to kind of unpack everything in my mind when I first watched it. Even today, I'm constantly asking myself about this end of the movie. So, Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. At Jupiter, Bowman leaves Discovery 1 in an EVA pod and finds another monolith in orbit around the planet. Approaching it, the pod is suddenly pulled into a tunnel of colored light, and a disoriented and terrified Bowman finds himself racing at great speed across the vast distances of space, viewing bizarre cosmological phenomena and strange alien landscapes of unusual colors. He finds himself middle-aged and still in his spacesuit, standing in a bedroom pointed in a Louis XIV style. Bowman sees progressively older versions of himself, his point of view switching each time, alternating appearing formally dressed and eating dinner, and finally as a very elderly man lying in a bed. A black monolith appears at the foot of the bed, and as Bowman reaches for it, he is transformed into a fetus-like being enclosed in a transparent orb of light. The new being floats in space beside Earth, gazing at it. And to quote Rock Hudson, what the fuck is this movie about? Because I have no idea how to break this down. There are so many things with this last end sequence. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Tell me your interpretations of what is going on in Dave's mind. What is going on in this last sequence of the movie? And I'm going to throw it over to you first, Tim, because you've got this AI thing under control, but I need to know, what is your mind going through when you watch this part?
Well, this is simply what you do when you don't know how to end your fucking movie. Plain and simple. You've turned a studio film into the world's most expensive art house film possible that somebody was dumb enough to give you a budget to make. I mean, it's really what it is. And this is the money-making shots for this movie, because this movie was an utter failure at the box office. They were getting ready to pull it, and the theater managers are like, no, hang on. Let it play. Because we notice when the kids come in and they get a little goofy on the hallucinogens, they love this ending piece. That's really what it is. It's like it's a Pink Floyd video, bad MTV, whatever. It's black lights and lava lamps and all kinds of ridiculous stuff that you can get stoned and watch and just sit around and turn into Beavis Butthead. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, literally what the ending of this show is. It's just, and I know, Kubrick likes to try to be artsy fartsy, which he achieves in spades in this. And, and Arthur C. Clarke's explanation was, well, if you understand 2001, then we didn't do it right because we wanted to have more questions than it does answers. Or if you just take a page again out of Stephen King's book, I have no idea how to end this, so I'm just going to do some fucking weird shit. That's really what it is to me. That's how this ends. It makes no fucking sense. It's just a like 20 minutes of silence with crazy, again, visuals that look like, lava lamps and oil lamps and whatever else, black tiger paintings, picket. I don't know what you got going on there. And then you come out on the end with some kind of weird, what I basically call an alien zoo, where they put this guy into a room that's kind of a Greek, a Greek setting with a glowing disco dance floor on the bottom of it. And again, we have Dr. Dave Bowman, who's like, all right, I guess I'm going to stand over here for a while, and then I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm just going to stand, and then I'm going to go ahead and eat dinner, and then I'm just going to lie down and die and not think anything of it, not question it, not wonder why I'm here, not be mad because I don't have a TV or books or any aliens to talk to. I'm just going to accept my fate and grow old and never, ever, ever show emotion. Thank you and good night. I mean, that's it. That's just, that's my whole take on it. It's just dumb as shit. So there you go. I hope somebody else, Andreas is shaking his head at me, so I'm sure he's going to give you much better interpretation. But for me, it's just It's just we didn't know what the fuck to do with this, so let's just get weird about it and let people get stoned and enjoy it.
Okay. All right. Well, before I go to Andres, I'm gonna hold off on you. Hold on. Joey, what the hell did we just see?
They lost me with some of the visuals. The colorization of flying through the Grand Canyon and the oceans and stuff. I think this could have been trimmed down. I do like some of the artificial images that we're kind of seeing like fly by us. That was really cool. I'm trying to think of other movies where I've seen something similar, where people are flying through kind of like a dreamscape. I know there's like it inspired a whole lot of other movies where people are seemingly like trying to experiencing something otherworldly. It could have been inspired by drugs. I don't have a fucking clue. But I think that the monolith itself might be a form of artificial intelligence. I don't think it's biological in nature necessarily, but it exists. I mean, we have one monolith, on the moon. It communicates to another monolith, which is a different shape, that's orbiting Jupiter. And I think it's definitely a way of alien intelligence, but not necessarily biological. And I do think that it was kind of mapping his brain. And I think that the dream sequences that are trippy, where it's like he's watching himself old, and then, I mean, first we see him, he's aged clearly in the spacesuit. Then he's looking at his older self, and then he is his older self, and then that one notices his even older self on his deathbed, and then that person's gone, and he's just experiencing death, and then back to life as this space fetus. Yes, it's artsy and it's fartsy, and the only thing that takes me out of it is the aged makeup designs. Practical makeup effects have come so far since then. That the crepey skin of that year's aging people artificially was just not that great. The worst I'd say is probably Once Upon a Time in America has the worst fucking aging effects of any movie I can think of that's in color. I don't mind it. The ending's iconic. People make fun of it. People don't really understand it. Did he create a giant Dave space baby to attack the Earth? Was he really as big as the Earth? Was this a forced perspective issue? Was it just symbolic? It's open to interpretation, and then clearly the sequel didn't make interpretations of it. But the Star Child is what it is. If nothing else, it gave a member of Kiss a name to glam onto. Get it? Glam rock. I don't mind the ending. I think if people are still talking about it to this day and trying to interpret it, it wasn't a failure of an ending. It just isn't necessarily the ending you expected, but most of the movie isn't. I mean, if you went in cold, you're not going to expect the next thing that's going to happen. I mean, my wife's watching it and she's like, okay, how long are these fucking monkeys going to be doing shit? And then all of a sudden she goes, where are they now? And I'm like, well, now they're in the, the future. There's a man in the future. That's the man's beginnings. This is man towards, the end of his evolution. And she's like, oh, okay. So that was giving me some insight as to, I wouldn't say she was a first-time viewer, but she was half watching something and having natural reactions to it, that it was all WTF. In the end, I'm gonna say this movie still wows me. When seeing particularly the spacecraft and then the lunar base and stuff, open up and receive another vessel inside of it. It's all I said, wow. How often are you watching all the CGI shit these days and you say wow anymore?
Yeah.
I said wow because it looked real. I said wow because it was real. It was a model.
Yeah, there's...
they were doing all these amazing... It was real art that someone created that existed. And there's something that tells me, not just me knowing that it's not CGI, but also it just not looking like computer effects.
Yeah, there's
Like
something to be said about a physical object occupying space, even if it's a model, and that's, I think that's what's missing out of some of today's movies, is that you don't get that physical space representation. I mean, yeah, you have three-dimensional space represented by a computer graphic, but it's a rendering. It doesn't give you that feeling of actually seeing all the little individual pieces of a model. I think that's what's missing in some of today's practical effects. It's just missing practical effects. Sorry, Joey, didn't mean to cut you off.
Didn't hate the ending, didn't love the ending. I respect the ending.
All right, Andres, time for you to open up your can of worms. What counterpoint or what agreements do you have for this?
Okay, what the fuck is going on with this ending? I will explain this to you as a Kubrick fan and a movie fan. But let me first start the two oh my god, I can't say it. Interpretations. Yeah, Chupacabra. Yeah, right. No, but that'd be kind of cool ending. Seeing Chupacabra came out from the Star Child and is like, I'm going to eat this planet, It's going to be my food.
Chupacabras from space. Nice. I like it. It's a better ending already. I like where your headspace is at, Andreas.
Exactly. That's what you get from Andreas, the pop culture guy. So anyway, okay, let me go first with the Arthur C. Clarke. He doesn't like this ending. He prefers the more reading ending he gets here, where it's more explained. And his view, the author who helped Kubrick for this film, he says that initially, before the Dalek got cut out, this was the creation of a new heaven, provided by the Star Child, the child, this new form that David formed. So this is a new dimension that kind of is a new territory for our human civilization to explore, right? But then with Kubrick's ending, this one, I see it as an evolution to humankind. This is, we're if you pay attention to David's, we were going through his life and death, and then he reborns into this new creature, this new type of form that we've never seen before. Think about the beginning, as Matt said before, how connect this to the beginning. What happened in the beginning? The apes, the dawn of man, stepped forward into new territories because he say about Professor X and X-Men, right? We were stepping into new evolution in mankind, and this is the next evolution of mankind David has become. And that image of him looking at the earth is is it he's coming to maybe help our humanity in this future to progress more? Or is it a shame, or he's seeing what's happened and he's maybe wants to fix it, because of what's going on, That's what is going on with that ending. Yes, that whole trippy acid thing, I think that was just David going into this metaphysical dimension of where the Mount was taking him, and kind of changing his form and his body into something very weird and just non-human form. That's what the ending is really about. That, and yeah, that's how I can explain the interpretation. So the authors say this is a new form of dimension. Here is actually a very simple answer. It's actually right there from the beginning to this is actually the next evolution of mankind. David has become a new form that we haven't seen before, and that's maybe something that he's maybe gonna show us as humanity to maybe be good or to be better at. That's what's going on with that ending. I know.
So if this was a TV show Babylon 5, then you're saying that David would be a Vorlon.
I will say yes, and I'm not a Babylon fan, but yes, and yes. Or Star Trek terms. If you remember in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, V'ger is the next human evolution. and like he wants to connect to the creator. That's kind of like what this ending about. If you've seen Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I like Star Trek: The Motion Picture. That movie got me into Star Trek. So anyway, so that's what the ending is. I can answer your questions. Do you guys agreed with this ending? I mean, look, you know, I know you get lost with that trippy acid theme, but it's what Matt say connected to the beginning. This movie is about evolution, and what Dave has gone through is a next evolution that takes it to a whole new level. Compared to the Dawn of Man of the Apes. Okay, so that's why I always interpret the ending after so many years. And of course, as Kubrick, you can interpret all this to be either evolution or this is a new form of David that's become a alien. But it's an evolution thing with this ending where we're now going into a next step of humankind that we haven't seen before.
Interesting thought. I appreciate your take on that.
I think that Ridley Scott would continue this theme in Alien with his AI, and then again in Prometheus. I mean, his
yes,
the aliens in Prometheus are basically acting like the monolith, and they're seeding the earth.
Yes.
So I think there's definitely great artists stealing from other great artists. I remember now what movie kind of ripped off what they call the Stargate sequence where he's seeing all the flashing lights. It's the vortex at the end of Evil Dead 2. He's traveling through the magical Christmas lights.
Star Wars. You remember in Star Wars when they do the was it the
light speed jump?
It's
hyperspeed.
Yeah, the hyperspeed. It's definitely a reference to 2001 when they do their travels.
Okay,
it's kind of like that, but not
which
trippy.
Which Star Wars? Which one are you talking about?
It's not like they do it, but like it's more of like a nudge.
I'm fucking with you, Andreas.
Okay.
Honestly.
Oh, fuck me. I was like, I thought it's the heart, the speed thing. When Han Solo is like,
dude, we spent 4 hours talking about Star Wars, so I mean, we know what you're talking about, right?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
In his defense, we did pummel a little hard during Predator, so he might still be a little gun shy there.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I did confess my love to an alien, so I was very
and you took it well. I mean,
exactly.
you confessed, and then you stood up for your your thought process with that, and your emotional attachment to such beings. So I'll give it to you. You stood by your decision for alien love.
Yeah, and by the way, same thing with AI. I'm in love with AIs as well, but female AIs. So just like you guys know that. So I will.
So X was it the Ex Machina or whatever? Yeah. That's what you're all about. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a Siri guy then, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. I think Alexa. I'm really into. Yeah.
I'm going to rescue you from that topic. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, when they did a hyperdrive jump and they went too fast. I think so, it was a little bit inspired by the star sequence here.
Yeah.
Well, hey, speaking of star sequences, let's look at these. Let's count these stars and give some points out.
Ooh, yeah.
So you guys, we talked about the star sequence, the jump to hyperspace, the crazy, traveling beyond space, beyond Jupiter. Do you guys know what David Trumbull used to create that effect?
For the sequence, like the star sequence?
Yes, for the star sequence.
I looked up on Wikipedia, so I'm out.
Yeah, I have it too ready to go, but I'm gonna let Andreas do this one.
Yeah, I think I remember. If my top of my head was like, I think first Kubrick before he gave it to Douglas, it was like some sort of jellyfish that he put and put in the plate, and then it was kind of like it was changing forms of colors, and he had to use it in if you're a photographer, he had to use like a red room to like get these kind of like crazy color imageries, I think. of that. If I don't know, I'm not sure that's the correct technique they did for this Darkgate, but it was in that similar form, in this like silhouette where this glass thing here, and then did these kind of liquid things, and they changed forms of colors, and that's how they got the Scargate sequence. That formed these color things. Now the other ones I'm trying to remember, like particularly the lands. Kubrick sent helicopters to take these lands of deserts or whatever, and then he will like change it in post to like colorize it into the be consistent to what we were seeing in the Scargate sequence. But it's been a while I remember this, but that's the parts I remember from the Stargate iteration.
Well, I'll say my part, and then I'll let Joey confirm if I'm right or not. And then if I am, I'll share a half a point with them. So what I believe happened was there was a couple different things. One, the landscaping, I think, was some of the scenes that they didn't use for Doctor Strangelove that they shot. I don't know whether it was a helicopter or whatever. And then they did some monochrome imaging and stuff on that for this. Plus, they use water and oil together and paints to get some of the flowing designs. They would put sticks in to get the flowing designs and stuff that they used for that. And then the last thing they used was like a camera technique where they opened up the lens really big and ran it across these images very quickly to also get the streaking and weird effects as well. And they combined all of those together in order to come across with this like kind of psychedelic, universal transport sequence.
They actually have a terminology for it. It was invented by Larry Flint of Hustler magazine. It's called slit scan photography.
So am I pretty right though, Joey?
It is actually called slit scan.
Okay, so the
slit photography.
The phrase I was looking for was slit streak photography.
Well, fuck Wikipedia then.
All right.
Directly from the mouth of Douglas Trimble. Tim and Andres are correct about the other photography portions. So I tell you what, guys, you'll all get a point for this because you all kind of teamed up and got this in there.
Oh, nice. Team effort. All right.
So it doesn't matter.
All right. So
scores is still what they were before, but
just one number higher, like a Marshall amp. All right. Another thing. Star Child. Joey mentioned Star Child. A Kiss reference. We have to give him a point for that. Congratulations, Joey. You are now tied with Andreas.
Oh shit!
All right. Andreas, though, you do get a point for saying V'ger and mentioning the V'ger probe from Star Trek. However, I have to dock you a point for saying that you love the motion picture Star Trek because it's the motion picture.
No, I love Star Trek too. That's my favorite. I have a what do you call it? It's the first movie that got me into Star Trek: The Universe. That was my first Star Trek.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I don't love like deeply motion picture. I like respect it. That's
Demon Seed though. You dropped Demon Seed on us. I think you should get a point for talking about.
All right, it's on my movie. Give him a point for my movie.
I'll give you a point for that then, Andreas.
What a night.
I gotta watch that now.
All right, let's see here.
Man.
Now here is a super question. This is a 2-point question. Are you guys ready for this?
Oh, lay on me.
All right. Was this film shot in 70 millimeter? And if so, has anyone in this panel seen it on 70 millimeter?
Yes and no.
Yes, I know it was shot in 70 millimeter, Pentavision, but unfortunately, I did not see that, particularly in the 2018, the 50th anniversary restoration that Christopher Nolan did. So I was very sad.
When I finished the movie, it said Cinerama on the screen, but I don't know all the. I don't think it was 70. I'm thinking it says there's 70 millimeter print.
Hold on.
It's saying a lot of different things here, but I know eventually, like it went to a quote unquote Cinerama theaters, which I think had like a bigger, wider, wackier screen. So, and that was part of what Tim said was like they made their money later upon further re-releases after it kind of got a cult following.
Actually, Kubrick, somebody, I don't remember who, but they recommended that he shoot it in that. And so he convinced the studio to pay the extra for that format in order to film it because they thought it would look much better in that format.
The answer is yes. Kubrick did shoot this in 70 millimeter. So Tim gets a point for that, but nobody gets the point for the second part of the question, which was, have you seen it in 70 millimeter?
No.
I watched 4K. It probably looks better than going to see it in the theater in 70 millimeter.
All right, Joey.
Because we went and I drug Tim and Jeebus to the Hateful Eight 70 millimeter screening way the fuck up north.
In the middle of winter when it was colder than shit outside.
Yeah, so we had the atmosphere of the movie, definitely. And it did not look better in 70 millimeter. It was on a smaller screen, but it was projected at 70 millimeter. I forgot what film jutter looked like, and we should have just went to the local movie theater, and we would have enjoyed it just as much.
I don't know, Joey. It was like Christmas for you. You were so excited to see it that format, even though it didn't.
Yeah, until it started playing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, nonetheless, you got to see it in that format, and you would have always regretted it had you not, because it may have been cooler, and you wouldn't have known.
I would have thought it was better than it was.
You would have been like, that thing with Clint Eastwood is, did I shoot 5 times or 6? And the guy's like, I gotta know. You've been the same way. Like, would it have been better? Yeah. I gotta know. So now you know. It sucks.
I think people who went to that special theater in the UK and watched the atom bomb movie, Oppenheimer, in 70 millimeter, and it cost. I mean, it was a wash. Like it cost so much to project it in IMAX, like true IMAX in 70 millimeter. There, that I don't think they were. I think they were losing money. But people got to watch this pristine way to watch it. I think maybe they saw something. But at the end of the day, if you do a high-res scan and watch it on OLED at home, it was probably just as good.
All right, now, Joey.
Before you tally this up, though, Matt, I want to hand one of my points over to Andres because I feel like I just went into an incoherent rant of hate on the ending of this. And he actually gave us a very thorough, like probably much more, eloquent and probably more spot on for the masses, summarization of this final sequence than my.
But is Tim allowed to do that?
All right.
Yeah. I guess is there a question?
So you're subtracting a point from Tim and giving it to Andres?
I'm gonna subtract a point from Tim and give it to Andres.
Yeah.
Joey, I'm gonna give you a half point because you watched this in 4K.
Yay!
So. Final score is Tim has got 8 points. Andres has 8 points. Joey's got 6.5. So,
man, that half is like, thank God for me being fiscally irresponsible
and buying a 4K copy of it. So yeah. Then of course the points don't mean anything. It's just a fun way to tally up who likes what, when, where, why, and how. So, gentlemen, we've now gone through 2001: A Space Odyssey. I have to ask, where does it sit with your death clock? Is it worth taking the 2 hours and 29 minutes off your death clock to watch this film for our listeners? And I'm going to turn it over to you first, Andreas. Is it worth time off your death clock?
Hell yes, it's worth your death clock. For robots and trippy acid Stargate sequence, come on. This is the best sci-fi film of all time. Not I cannot tell you guys what's your favorite, but it's top tier sci-fi films, and it's very influential to everyone in the industry. I mean, it gave us, Star Wars and and Alien and Superman, and I mean, it's a big deal. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I see why. As a Cooper fan, I know we don't do ranking. For my ranking for this film, for me, it's a third best Cooper film after Doctor Strangelove and A Clockwork Orange. Yeah, and so it's a fantastic film. Yeah, it's very slow and very cold, but there's things you can latch onto, and it has great production values and great music and iconic scenes that's been parodied so many times in media. So that shows you that this movie is iconic and tells you that if it affected everyone for this last 55 years or whatever,
Gotcha. All right. Well, Joey, what does this movie, where does this movie sit on your death clock? Yes or no?
It's worth taking time off my death clock, but I don't think it's worth taking time off the average viewer. It was definitely, I would say, I'm not going to say it's in my top 10 of most, beloved sci-fi movies of all time, because it's not. But do I consider it one of the most, like the top 10 most influential science fiction movies? Absolutely. It didn't just inspire more fiction, it inspired inventors to take these concepts and turn them into reality. So I think it's a very, very important film. And if you're wanting to watch it from a historical perspective to see how far special effects have come and what they were, and seeing kind of the apex of some practical effects and in-camera effects, and you also want to see what inspired the technology today, if you're watching it for those reasons and not just, oh, this is going to be really cool to watch, then I think it's worth your time off your death clock. If you want to watch it just because you want to watch a really entertaining movie, there's more entertaining movies out there. They have a faster pace. They're not going to offend your 21st century attention span like this movie is. This is it's a slow burn.
Okay. Tim, how about you? Where does it sit on your death clock?
Well, unless you live in a state where pot is legal and you've lost your copy of Pink Floyd The Wall or heavy metal, there is absolutely no need for you to take time off your death clock for this film. I mean, I found myself really intrigued with the film and just kept waiting for a payoff that never happens. In fact, I'm going to quote the New York Times at the time. They said it's somewhere between hypnotic and immensely boring. And that pretty much sums it up for me. Now, I will admit, it's visually appealing. The set design is fantastic, and Kubrick's use of three-dimensional spaceship design was amazing. But in the end, the story just falls flat with really only two plot points. Discovery and and influence of the monoliths, and the malfunctioning of HAL. I just feel the book and script that Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke wrote, it doesn't lend itself easily to the big screen. And although I applaud Kubrick for, trying, he was just never going to be able to, relate the concepts of that depth in a visual storytelling format. It's just, and I guess if you feel like you need to see it, then I'm going to recommend you do like Joey, go find a PlayStation, put it in there and watch it at 1.5, 2 times speed, get to the good parts, look at the visuals and move forward. If you could get this down to about, 30 minutes, it might be worth your time, because that's about all the amount of dialogue there is in it anyway. So there you go.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna piggyback on a Joey, and I'm gonna say yes, it's worth taking your time, but not for a story point, but more for a visual point, more for the fact that there are certain tropes in this movie that have inspired other movies, and the fact that there are so many references of this movie in a great TV series of The Simpsons. I mean, if you want to see where all these little gags and stuff come from, check out 2001: A Space Odyssey. But yeah, don't watch it for the story so much. Watch it for the visuals. Watch it for the Kubrickisms. The sound, the lack of sound in space. That's what you should really watch this movie for. So if you want to sit down, burn out 2 hours and 29 minutes of just a visual diorama of things, watch it. Other than that, not worth the story.
You said burnout.
All right, gentlemen. Well, that brings us to mail call. And again, no mail tonight. Sorry.
Nobody loves us.
Yep. I mean, we had one in like the last, 36 or 35 episodes. So hopefully somebody out there will email us in. And folks, if you want to email us. Let us know what you think of the show. If you have a counterpoint to what we think of 2001: A Space Odyssey, email us at mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com. That's mamreviewpodcast@gmail.com. Also, you can check out our show notes for our email address if you want to email us. Please do. Let us know what you think. All right, gentlemen, what are you watching? Andres, over to you, buddy. What are you watching?
Well, as everyone knows, I'm working closely with the MCU Bleeding Edge. So right now my watch view is right now Africa, the Penguin, Daryl Dixon, and outside of that, my channel, I also watch Superman and Lois for my pop culture recap on Wednesdays. That's for tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Yeah, and recently I saw a movie on Sunday on the Montclair Film Festival. If you guys know that, very great festival, show us a lot of great films. I recently saw the new film, the Sean Baker's film, Anora. Great film, starring Mikey Mason, the actress that was in What's My Time in Hollywood, and the new screen film, the fifth film, 2022, playing one of the Ghostface killers. So that was really great. I think that's the movie that won the Pon Festival recently. So it's gonna be definitely an Oscar contender. So that's what I'm watching recently. So yeah.
Okay, Tim, what are you watching?
I've watched 3 things. So even though as far as podcast wise, we're out of October, month wise, we're still not out yet. So I watched Werewolf by Night, which I enjoyed. It's was an actual 1 hour Disney made for TV movie that actually is really good. So I recommend it to anybody. It's nice, short, and pretty entertaining as a whole. I also pulled out the classic 1987 film The Monster Squad. I don't know if you guys remember this, gem, but hey, Wolfman's
Yes.
got nards. So yeah, it's kind of a forgotten gem, kind of along the line of the Goonies. Not quite as good, but pretty entertaining. It has it has an okay storyline to it. It's just fun to watch. So if you want to watch a horror film, but you don't need to watch a lot of hack and slash, and you just want something that's kind of fun, go check out The Monster Squad. And then the last thing I watched is I watched The Predator. I was on MCU's Bleeding Edge last Friday with Andreas and Jeff S. True Knowledge, Cybernetic Shark, and Matt from Born to Watch. And we talked up The Predator. And so if you want to go check that out, go check out the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and you can hear all of us discuss The Predator.
Did you guys do a counter, like a live counter on how many times people say, "Get you the chopper"?
No, but we really had a love fest with that whole, that whole statement as a whole.
Yeah.
Do it now!
Yeah.
Come on, get me out of here!
Yeah, there was a lot of bad Arnold Schwarzenegger, people trying to pretty much, channel Arnie, and there was drinking involved, so it's a little slow at the beginning, and by the end, it gets pretty rowdy and obnoxious. And poor Andreas, again, he pours his heart out for his love of the Predator, and we might have jumped onto that a little bit. So, but he was a good sport. He took it well. He took it well. It was, I think it's pretty entertaining, and we appreciate your good-natured humor about that.
Awesome.
Did anyone discuss the relationship between Blaine and Mac?
Oh, we didn't.
No,
I sort of hinted that, like, the bromance it was for those two.
Fans have, added subtext.
Yeah.
I don't think they were thinking of it that way. It's not like Nightmare on Elm Street 2, where the character's obviously gay.
Yeah.
This is more, and they picked a gay actor. This is more like, you have to read into it.
Yeah, we chose.
But definitely, Blaine was definitely overcompensating, talking about being a sexual Tyrannosaurus and stuff like that.
We chose to approach the movie from a man's perspective.
He was heterosexually insecure.
Well, we ain't got time to bleed, so.
Yes.
Yeah, we got to move on.
Joey, what are you watching?
I just watched a movie called Brothers on Amazon. The closest movie I can compare it to, because they're both about unusual twins with height differences on a road trip, is the movie Twins. Although it's completely different than that. And I don't watch, Brendan Fraser's in it too. Do not watch the trailer for this. Just log into Amazon Prime and watch the movie. Don't spoil it for yourself. It's a WTF movie, and it's fast-paced, and it's funny. And my favorite line from it is, "Man, Glenn, you're still fucking cool. Look at you." It's an amazing. I think it's one of Peter Dinklage's most lovable characters. He's despicable, but he's still lovable. He's really fun in the movie.
Nice. You know, that kind of dovetails into what I've watched. Lately I've been on this this comedian kick. I've been checking out like newer comedians, and I found this guy, and his name is Brad Williams. And like Peter Dinklage, he's a dwarf, but he is so freaking hilarious. Check out on Amazon Prime his special Fun Size. It is hilarious. It's probably the only stand-up comedian where you'll see the whole run across the stage going, "Look at me, I'm a midget, I'm a midget, I'm a midget, I'm a midget, I'm a midget." It is.
I think he's overrated.
It is hilarious, though. I think he's really funny.
I'm not shitting on Brad Williams, but there's funnier people out there.
Gotcha. All right, well, Tim, you want to bring us on home?
Sure. Well, first, Andreas, thank you for joining us on this journey to Jupiter and beyond. And please let our listeners know where they can find more of you and your reviews and interesting videos.
Yes. No, thank you, everyone, for inviting me again to 2001 Space Odyssey. I was so excited for reviewing a Stanley Kubrick film finally. So tomorrow I'll be back in MC Bleeding Edge doing the review, recap discussion on Africa Online episode 7. So that's crazy. It's also, I speak before, I'm gonna have my recap, Andreas Pop Culture recap on all the shows that I'm reviewing, up to Superman and Lois for episode 3 and 4. And yeah, then you check out my channel, Andreas Pop Culture Channel Presents. That's what it's called. And that's where you see all the goodies, like live stream reviews, podcasts, movie tributes, and top 10s, and all that. And I just want to thank Tim, Joey, Matt for inviting me again. This was a great fun show tonight. One of the best Tuesdays I have.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening to the Middle Age Movie Reviews podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our review of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And if you're going to watch it, make sure you toke up those joints because it'll make it a lot more entertaining at the end, I guarantee you.
Please like and subscribe to our show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podchaser. We have a goal of 50 subscribers by 2025, so please give us a hand and click on that heart or subscribe button and get the word out about our show. If you'd like to continue the conversation about movies, check out our Facebook app at Middle Age Movie Reviews Group for interesting insights, questions, and movie-related posts. And don't forget, we're also part of the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network, where you can get more entertaining shows just like this one.
You know, I gotta say that Tim didn't get to finish his thought on that the satellites were nuclear weapons. And then the Star Child was originally going to detonate the weapons at the end of the film. I just wonder about the guy like going out to get the morning paper and looking up and seeing a giant baby in the sky. And all the satellites are blowing up. That guy's going to think he's on drugs.
Kind of wrecks your morning.
Dear, there's a fetus in the sky? I don't think I'm going into work.